Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to largely follow the order. However, we're going to do the first two bills, and then we're going to skip down to Senate Bill 453, 425, and 424, and then resume the order again. So first two bills, and then those three I said, and that's how it looks at the moment. So let's get started on Senate Bill 388. Who do we have? Someone from the administration? Yes? Yes. There we go. All right. And if you've got everyone, when you have a panel, have them come right up with you. We don't like to lose any time in the process. So always bring your panel up. All right. We are ready.
You ready? All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of Budget and Tax, and I thought I also saw members of the Finance Committee as well.
Let me introduce, yes. Leonard Hayes is with us today, representing the Finance Committee. We appreciate you being here. Probably chair over here if you want to sit up at the table. Yeah. One right in the middle. All right, thank you.
Yep. For the record, Tony Bridges, Deputy Legislative Officer for Governor Wes Moore. And I'm here to present on Senate Bill 388, the Delivering Economic, Competitive, and Advancing Development Efforts, or the Decade Act of 2026. This bill actually is very familiar to this committee. You actually helped pass this bill last year out of committee as well as out of the Senate. Unfortunately, it got over to the House side a little bit too late, and we were not able to move the bill forward on the House side. And so we are reintroducing the bill this year. And this year, the Decade Act aims to increase business investment, support startups, and improve the efficiency of state-sponsored economic development initiatives by really sharpening the economic tools that we have in our toolbox. The overarching goal is really threefold: to apply the lessons learned on our economic development programs to improve them, to ensure that our programs are straightforward and easy to market and utilize, and to ensure our economic tools are complementary of one another. As the governor noted in his State of the State, in 3 years, we've attracted more than $10 billion in private investment here to the state of Maryland. And we've also secured new partnerships that I know Secretary Coker can go on and on about, and so I'll leave that up to him. But besides the partnerships and the policy, the governor really has proposed a budget that includes funding to support our economic development initiatives, such as the $13.5 million in total state funding through capital funds through both MEDCO and the Maryland Department of Commerce to support the construction of the Sphere and National Harbor, which will bring 2,500 jobs as well as during the construction phase, as well as more than 4,700 jobs once operational. There's also $15.5 million for stem cell research institutions, $14.6 million in capital funding for AstraZeneca facility improvements, which is the first allocation of an 8-year commitment, and $16 million for the State Sunny Day Fund, enabling Maryland's strategic economic growth by attracting major businesses and also creating job and investments. And so in a few minutes, you'll hear from members on the panel who will discuss different provisions within this act, which is, you will see, is more targeted this year with just 10 provisions. Last year, I believe we had close to 29 provisions in this bill. And so again, thanks to the membership here in the Budget and Tax Committee, we are starting pretty much where we left off last year with the 10 provisions that we have that we're presenting to you today in this bill. This is a more streamlined bill to increase business investment, support startups, and improve the efficiency of state-sponsored economic development initiatives. And so with that, we will humbly request a favorable report on Senate Bill 388, and I will pass it over to my colleagues before we answer any questions, if that's okay with the committee.
Okay. I'll go, sir. Good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and committee members. For the record, I am Harry Coker, Maryland Secretary of Commerce, and I am here to testify in support of Senate Bill 388, the Decade Act of 2026. Senate Bill 388 is the cornerstone of the administration's efforts this session to increase our state's economic competitiveness, in particular across those key lighthouse sectors that are vital to the success of our Winning the Decade economic roadmap. This legislation focuses on enhancing key programs administered by the Department of Commerce and MEDCO to make those programs more effective, to increase their return on investment, and ultimately to attract more private investment to the state of Maryland. The Decade Act of 2026 moves the Sunny Day Fund, which is also known as the Economic Development Opportunities Program Fund, to the Department of Commerce and rebrands it as the Strategic Closing Fund and renews its focus on business attraction rather than retention. It also extends the Research and Development Tax Credit until 2031 and the Employer Security Clearance Cost Tax Credit until 2032. Excuse me. And lastly, it removes the $10 million per production cap for the film production activity tax credit. This will allow Maryland to attract larger film and TV projections, generating more investment and a larger economic impact. The bill also enhances two programs that are currently housed at Commerce: the Build Our Future Innovation Infrastructure Grant Program and the Rise Zone Program. Both of them will move over to MEDCO. And my friend and colleague, Tom Sadowski, MEDCO's Executive Director, will speak to those provisions in more detail shortly. And we all know 2025 was a challenging year for Maryland and the world, and we saw in our home state dramatic cuts in federal spending and the catastrophic elimination of roughly 25,000 federal jobs in our state. Even so, we scored a number of significant economic development wins, including commitments from Microsoft and DARPA to support the $1 billion Capital Quantum Initiative in College Park, AstraZeneca's $2 billion expansion of its manufacturing operations in Frederick and Montgomery counties, and more recently, in Prince George's County, the $1 billion Sphere Arena coming to National Harbor. In addition, there were big wins in Hagerstown with Hitachi Rail, in Rockville with Samsung Biologics, and just this past Saturday was at a ribbon cutting in Baltimore City at Gaslight Square for Nature Cell, bringing 500 stem cell research manufacturing jobs to Baltimore City. Last year alone, commerce activities helped create and retain more than 4,800 jobs. This Decade Act, if passed and signed into legislation, will help us maintain and increase that momentum. And as our economy grows, Maryland's gravity gets stronger, and the more we can attract future investment. This legislation, again, is critical. It's a critical part of the Moore-Miller administration's economic growth agenda, and this will make us all stronger, this will make us faster, and this will make us more competitive. Sincerely and humbly, we request a favorable report on Senate Bill 388.
Tom.
Oh, thanks. Go ahead. Tell you what, I'll get it closer. Thanks. Thanks very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Vice Chair of Finance, members of the committee. My name, for the record, is Tom Sadowski, Executive Director of the Maryland Economic Development Corporation, and we are pleased to be represented as part of this legislation and a member of this esteemed panel. It's been an honor to work with the Moore-Miller administration on the development of this signature piece of legislation, Senate Bill 388. It is essential, as my good friend Secretary Coker has spelled out already, but it's really essential to leverage Maryland's core strategic strengths, its assets, and make sure we have the most resilient and competitive economy of its size in the country. MEDCO has been particularly interested in this project because a lot of what's required is spelled out and enumerated as part of some of the programs to build our future innovation infrastructure fund in the RISE zone. We really need to improve our technology and our innovation infrastructure throughout the state. And I think Commerce has done a great job of managing the program to date. We have a real opportunity to take on that program and help leverage it in a way to expand even further the infrastructure capabilities of the state and really build on its knowledge economy and technology assets. The RISE zone provides us that opportunity to build to really take on the job of placemaking around our hospitals, around our military installations, and around our higher ed institutions. That is so critical because that's a lot of where existing infrastructure already resides, and the kind of opportunities for building housing and creating more places for startups and industry to collaborate with our higher ed partners couldn't be more critical. And finally, this whole bill, its emphasis is on creating partnership opportunities. And MEDCO's become particularly adept at helping forge partnerships between private sector, public sector, and our friends in the education community. So with that, I mean, MEDCO is really pleased to have an opportunity to serve and request your favorable report on Senate Bill 388.
Great. Good afternoon to the chair, vice chair, and the committee. I'm Mark Anthony Thomas. I lead the Greater Baltimore Committee. The GBC represents the state's largest economic footprint. We've also done some work in-house to consolidate the economic alliance of Greater Baltimore. We've acquired B Local and Upsurge, and so has created more synergy within the region and our collaboration with the state. Over the last 3 years, we've worked closely with the administration to bring business leaders, entrepreneurs, and investors to understand how we better position Maryland's private sector for investment. That engagement matters because what business has said is they need more flexible tools, they need incentives that reflect how investments are flowing today, particularly in those innovation-driven and the modernization of manufacturing that's underway across the United States. Also, entrepreneurs and investors need programs that move at the speed of business, not through our legacy systems that exist. Concurrently, creative and film companies have told us something similar. They love Maryland, they love our workforce, they love our locations, but our current programs actually limit the scale and scope of how those stories can be told in Maryland. The Decade Act responds directly to those realities. We know what success looks like. The $2 billion AstraZeneca investment is the largest state investment in over a decade, but that level of investment should not be an exception. It should be something that we regularly position Maryland for. At GBC, we track every single investment that comes into our region, accounting over $4 billion in the last 2 years. But those numbers could be more robust across the region and the state. And so the Decade Act is not a finish line, but it is a start. It strengthens and modernizes the tools that we can use to win and close deals. And the GBC is grateful to support this effort and be a partner in how we implement it. Thank you.
Just here to help with anybody.
Any questions for this panel? Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the panelists. Couple of questions. One, on the reallocation of the video lottery terminal funds, it looked like you guys are, it says that it's going to relocate 0.75% of the VLT money from the Maryland Small and Minority-Owned Business account to Ms. Bitzfa. Does that represent an increase of the grants that Ms. Bitzfa is able to loan to small minority entrepreneurs, or why the switch?
Thank you for the question, Senator. It will likely represent an increase. So right now, as you noted, there is 1.5% of video lottery terminal revenue that is going into the Small Minority Women-Owned Business account, SMWOBA. That ends up being about $20 million a year. Right. What we are proposing in this bill is to split that in half. So 0.75% of that revenue, so about $10 million, will go into SMWOBA, and then the other $10 million will go into Ms. Bitzfa. Ms. Bitzfa right now is largely reliant on its repayments, and it has been getting a special fund appropriation of, I think, around $6.8 million a year, and then a $1.5 million general fund appropriation. The intent with this is for this 10 million to replace those two appropriations. So it would be slightly more than what they're currently getting, but it would also be a sustainable revenue stream so that if, for instance, in 1 year, their repayments are a little bit lower because they work with disadvantaged businesses who may struggle to make repayments, we would have that revenue coming in from the video lottery terminals to make sure that they have funding available to be able to loan or invest in other businesses.
Gotcha. And during the COVID pandemic, we recognized that small disadvantaged businesses often lack the ability to attract capital, and most of what Ms. Bitfa offered to small minority businesses is in a way of debt. And so one of the things we recognized during the COVID times was we had opportunities where they could have access to capital that they didn't have to repay. In the new scheme of this bill in a decade, is there any changes in that, or will they continue to do the status quo and just offer debt to small business?
The bill is not changing the types of funding that can be offered through MISBIDFA. They've got 4 different capabilities that we call them that can be offered through the MISBIDFA program. We're not changing any of those. We are enhancing some of it. We're increasing in some places the amount of funding that the program can provide to businesses. And we're making some adjustments, like on the contract financing piece, we're making some tweaks to what they can provide, but we're certainly not taking away anything that can be provided through MISBIDFA. We're really trying to ensure there's a sustainable revenue stream and then ensure that more funding can be provided where the authority sees fit, because those amounts have not been increased, to my knowledge. I don't know of a time when they were last increased. So we are looking to be able to provide more funding to the businesses.
All right. And do you anticipate any changes in the fund managers that operate the funds in this case?
So for the fund managers will be on the SMWOBA side. We don't anticipate any changes necessarily. We are looking into potentially having an RFP to solicit more fund managers, to bring in some more fund managers to come in and get more of that money out to businesses. But we do not anticipate certainly removing any fund managers as long as they're still interested in continuing to be a fund manager through the program.
Gotcha. And lastly, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The chair of this committee and I has expressed a great deal of interest in the RISE zones, and they haven't been very successful here in the state of Maryland. Not many institutions have taken advantage of this opportunity for innovation. It seems that this bill proposes to transfer the jurisdiction of RISE zone from Maryland Department of Commerce over to MEDCO. I guess, what level of certainty do we have, just because it's changing houses, that it will remain effective? Are there significant changes as far as the substance and administration to make sure that we have a program that can definitely motivate and incentivize the type of investment that we hope to get as a state?
I really appreciate the question. I know Vice Chair and I have talked about changes to this program and its ineffectiveness in the past. So there's a lot of room for improvement, let's put it that way. I do envision some changes. We have to look at it across the spectrum. One is like making sure there's an incentive for a developer to come in and actually help us develop the space that's necessary, whether it's a lab facility or a SCIF facility. We have to make sure that it pencils out. We also have to make sure that that space is provided at a rate that's palatable to a startup, and look at a flexible lease term. So I'm confident with our financing capabilities that allow us to take bonds out over 30 years, that can impact the economics of those types of real estate transactions. And look, I've seen these types of projects, Atlanta, Tech Square around Georgia Tech. You go into Texas, you go into Ohio. They've figured it out, and we have some case studies that we've cultivated that I think if we borrow some of their practices, we can certainly make that RIZONE program work. But you pointed out it has not been very effective, and we're hoping that it can be the kind of placemaking program that it needs to be to help build those innovation communities around the subject institutions that would qualify.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mr. Chair. The last is just a statement more than a question. I would just hope, as the transfer happened, the only of our historically black colleges and universities that's taken advantage of the RISE zones is Morgan. That hasn't been really successful. Recognizing that our historically black colleges and universities have a special, unique role in Maryland's kind of landscape. Hopefully that there's some conversations with them to see how this new incentive can benefit them in a way to help them grow and help them build more close relationships as it relates to the business community.
Absolutely. Lake Clifton is right in our crosshairs there. I mean, I think that could be a great new project. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hedelman, and then we'll get through this lineup over here with all these flashing lights. And we just point out to the committee members who are have some great questions, I'm sure, that we will be doing some work group on this. So just as a reminder, we have a lot of people here today. Senator Hedelman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is for whomever would like to answer the question. I'd like to sort of zoom out a little bit, and I was just reviewing an old evaluation, not so old, but evaluation of the R&D tax credit that DLS did a couple of years ago. I know it had been revamped, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk about that and talk more broadly about the purpose of the bill overall, which is, from my perspective, and tell me your perspective, is to provide more incentives for businesses in Maryland, for businesses to come to Maryland, and to provide more support for those that are here to expand and grow and innovate. But is it shoring up businesses that already exist? Is it incentivizing the creation of new? Is it luring from elsewhere? Is it all of the above? And then if you can put some specific light on R&D, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
If you want, I can just start with the overall, and it looks like you were reading from my notes. It is a hodgepodge of how we really want to attract, retain, and maintain the businesses that are here in the state of Maryland. And so if you look at some of the provisions in the bill, it's about extending some of the sunset or extending the sunset on some tax credits. And so the tax credits that we're extending are those that we know we've gotten a good return on investment on, and we want other businesses to also take advantage of those tax credits. Some of the other programs that we have, we're sort of revamping those programs. As an example, we're trying to incentivize businesses to actually take advantage of some of the programs that we have here in Maryland. And so I can't recall, and Jen will correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a provision in here where one of the programs, I think there's a 60-day time limit on when we get back to the business about whether or not they've got the funding. We're shortening that time limit from 60 days to, I believe, 45 days, which, you know, is still a lot of time, but we're trying to make it a lot busier to move, as my friend said, at the speed of business. And so we're trying to use the different tools that we have in our toolbox, sharpen those tools so that we can do all the things that you were talking about, whether it's bringing in new businesses, helping to expand the businesses that we have here in the state of Maryland, and just retain the businesses that we have. And so the tools that we've listed out, the 10 provisions, are to do all of the above.
And on the R&D piece, admittedly, I have not looked at the evaluation in a while, and certainly not recently. But as you noted, the program was revamped, and I believe it was after that evaluation that was it not?
There had been changes prior to the evaluation. The evaluation came out December 24, and they had made some evaluations. It may not have been enough time to really dig into the effect of those changes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if you guys have, and you know, is it really an effective tool at doing what you want it to do?
Yes. We have been very happy with the changes that were made to the program. One of the main changes that was made was we eliminated what had been the base credit in the R&D, where we were giving a tax credit for just maintaining the base amount of R&D spending that a company was doing. And so now what we have left is the growth, what had been referred to as the growth credit. So it really incentivizing these companies to build upon and grow the amount of R&D spending that they are doing in Maryland. So turning it into a true incentive program. The other thing that was done when we made those changes, maybe in 2022 or so, was a set aside for small businesses so that we can ensure that, because we get applications that are well beyond the $12 million cap on the program, the small businesses are able to get nearly as much as they apply for. They're not getting prorated to the extent that like the bigger businesses are. So we have been very happy with the changes that were made to it. We think it's really effective in incentivizing R&D spending in the state, which is something that we do well here in Maryland.
Senator Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Quick question in regards to enterprise zones. I know that was a conversation last year, and I'm trying to figure out, do we still have the enterprise zones in here, or do we not?
The enterprise zones were not in the bill last year. They are not in the bill this year.
Okay, so we're leaving enterprise zones alone.
We are not touching enterprise zones in this bill
Thank you.
at all, actually. Let me clarify. We were not touching enterprise zones at all. Sorry.
Senator McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did a significant amount of work on this bill last year, and I appreciate that you acknowledged that it was in the Senate and it passed out the Senate. And one of the pieces of work that I know I worked profusely on was in reference to the VLT dollars. Is it in the same posture that left the Senate in last year?
It is not. We spoke over the interim about that change that was made to, so it passed out of the Senate as a 60-40 split as opposed to the 50-50 split. And we reintroduced it back at the 50-50 split, which was honestly what we opted to do after you and I spoke over the interim as well. And just, we think that is the best for both programs to have it at a 50-50 split. And that was also the preference with some members on the House side that we were working with.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge, like, that wasn't an agreement. Like, I wasn't in agreement with that piece of it. Let me be clear. When small businesses come to my neighborhood, and a lot of the folks that say that they're there aren't typically there, but I do know the folks that benefit from Ms. Bitzfa or their trusted partners that we can have the ability to call on to make sure that that access to capital actually exists. One of the things is that I know that we utilize the resources within the fund. So it's not like there's these large fund balances within there. So the money is necessary. I'll let you know, Mr. Secretary, that I do have a problem with that transition. Like I said, we worked very hard to get to some level of a sweet spot, trying to identify what a middle looks like. But right now, it's something that I've dealt with all 12 legislative sessions that I have. When minority companies are trying their best to access capital, that capital isn't existed from all entities that exist. But this trusted partner, I do know that I can count on them and that they have had a return on my investment in reference to my neighborhoods.
And Senator, if I could just add, I think I heard the chair say loud and clear that Senator Hedelman also reminded him that there will be a work group on this, and we're more than happy to work with you on changes that you think are fit for the bill.
That's my guy, so I'll just leave that. We spent a significant amount of time last year getting to a sweet spot. So when stuff like, that's why I asked, is it in the same posture that it left the Senate? I do think that when we work that much, spend our greatest asset, which is our time, on something, and there's some level of a difference, the way it's introduced the next year, there's a phone call, there's some type of say, hey, this is coming your way. I'll leave it there.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe there's a second panel.
Okay, I'm going to call up Debbie Dorsey, William Cole, Therese Black, Edwin DeJampa, and Kevin Kennelly.
Chairman, members of the committee. My name is William Cole. I'm a partner at Margrave Strategies. I was sitting here remembering that 27 long years ago, I was a member of the House of Delegates, and I don't know how that happened that long ago. I had stuff to testify. The prior panel covered it all. My friend from West Baltimore covered the thing I was going to speak about today, and I would say that of the many hats I've worn over the last many years, I served on the Rhizone Steering Committee that this legislature requested Commerce convene several years ago. And I'll just read you one very small piece of it that is very important because it highlights what you just said, Senator Hayes, and that is the Rhizone program has not produced any economic benefit to the institutions that applied for and secured zone certification, to the businesses located within the zone boundaries, nor to the communities surrounding the institution. The most significant attempt to revise the zone benefits in order to achieve the goal of capturing and leveraging technology and intellectual capital to create, grow, and attract businesses to the zone have also failed. So I know we all strongly support the Rhizone, and it has been tweaked over the years. It still isn't working. This is another chance in supporting this bill to make sure Rhizones are impacting the communities and the anchor institutions. And to your point, there are a number of HBCUs that could benefit from this tool used appropriately. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Debbie Dorsey. I'm chair of the Maryland Film Industry Coalition. We are an alliance of labor and business leaders, individuals, and educational institutions who work together to advocate for better business conditions for the film and television industry in Maryland. And I'm here today to support Senate Bill 388 on behalf of the MFIC. It represents a positive step forward, and we support any changes that may help the film industry. As you all know, because I know that a lot of the committee has worked for years with the film industry, and we thank you for that. But I just want to remind everyone that the credits are only issued after production is complete and dollars have been spent. In Maryland, there's no upfront funding for this tax credit. Independent studies show that the program more than pays for itself. And from 2011 to 2025, since we've had this production tax credit, the film industry has generated more than $1.5 billion in economic impact in Maryland. So again, we support Senate Bill 388 and the efforts that the governor and Commerce are putting forward to positively strengthen the film industry. It's really important to keep this tax credit going. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Edwin Bright-Champa. I am the CEO and founder at Omega-3 Nutrition. I was a recipient of Ms. BISFA in 2025, specifically under a matching provision where they invested about $800,000 into our business during our fundraising round. Ms. BISFA has been immensely helpful to our business. Since closing in on that funding, we've hired an additional 20 employees, full-time workers, all within Rockville, Maryland area. And on top of that, it has helped increase our projections in terms of sales target because we have more production staff workers. We are now on pace to quadruple the amount of revenue we did last year, which last year we sat around about $5 million in business, just under $5 million. So it has been immensely helpful. I can speak on the timeline of the investment as well. When we first made initial contact with them in April, and by mid-May, we had the dollars within our bank account. So it was relatively quick compared to what I'm used to with investors. So I'm proudly in favor of Bill 388 and any measures and provisions that are put in that bill to improve it. So thank you.
Thank you. Jim Hughes. I am at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I think perhaps representing Kevin Kelly might be on your list, but very pleased to be here. Thanks to the governor and the General Assembly, and particularly this committee and Finance Committee, Senator Hayes, in supporting the efforts of UMB and also universities throughout the state, really focusing on in addition to the academic and research work we do, and in our case, clinical work, having the economic impact of that. And in order, I think we've made good strides there. We've brought in nearly $1 billion worth of private investment to help build our biopark. We were, I think, one of the first RISE zones in the state, if not the first. To a couple of the points here, we actually have let that RISE zone designation lapse because the benefits as they currently have not been impactful. But we've created 30 startup companies in the last 4 years. We collaborate extensively with Maryland businesses, AstraZeneca, 36 Maryland businesses. So it's a big part of what we do. Just last Friday, the Board of Regents approved a new placemaking project on our campus that will create 1,300 room for 1,300 new people to live in West Baltimore and placemaking and restaurants and activities. So all of that's a huge priority for us. What this bill does is we depend on all aspects of this, the biotech tax investment tax credit. Our companies depend on it. We're very excited about the RISE zone of getting a 10-year duration so we can really attract the type of investments. They know that there's going to be a long-term commitment. So we strongly support this bill and appreciate your support overall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of the bill. Last year, we raised several issues with last year's bill, and happy to report and want to thank the administration for working with MEDCO, with our local economic development folks, to make sure that this really is a holistic statewide strategy. We feel like we're in a really good place with this bill at this point. The only thing that the economic development directors on the ground would ask is that as some of these programs transfer to MEDCO, they are consulted, they're at the table for some of these decisions that affect local economic development. I believe that is the intent of the bill, and we'd support the bill and ask for a favorable report with that just technical clarifying amendment.
Thank you. Everyone got a chance on this panel? Great.
No.
Any questions for this panel?
I'm here virtually. Are you able to see me?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to call on you in just a second. Thank you. Ms. Black. Okay. Was there anyone else in the audience who was testifying? I think I've got everybody up at this point. Okay. All right. Yes, Ms. Black. Can hear you. Yes. Welcome. Glad to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Teresa Black. I'm the CEO of Bon Appetit Suite. I'm here to testify in support of Bill 388, specifically the small minority and women-owned business account aspect of the bill. I received funding from this program in 2024. Maryland's offerings helped to attract me to the state and also helped me to expand and grow. I started my business in Virginia and actually moved to the state because of the programs. I spent many years trying to raise funds for my business, and up until I received funding from this specific program, I had been unable to raise any significant amount of money. Not because my business was failing or doing poorly, but because Black-owned and women-owned businesses receive less than 3% of all venture funding. And my history as a naval officer didn't leave me in a position to know venture capitalists. Without personal or family wealth, I was left without resources. This program allowed me to raise money because the investors that I was able to find were more confident in investing in me because the state believed in me and my business. I was on Shark Tank last summer, and each and every one of the sharks on the panel were impressed by what I've been able to build with such a small amount of money. And we wouldn't have been able to do this or film our episode had Maryland not stood behind me through the small minority and women-owned business account. This program is necessary, especially given the impact that tariffs have had on businesses that qualify for this program. So I ask that you pass the Senate Bill 388.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Black, panel? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We're going to switch it up again a little bit. Sorry. We're going to go, we'll get back to 427 in a second. We're going to do 453, 425, and 424.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee and audience, please accept my apology for butting in line. I do apologize, but this is a proud parent moment. My son is in Quebec City competing in a international ice hockey tournament. He's been there since last Thursday, competing against 120 other teams from around the world. He's won games against Austria, France, Lithuania, the Czech Republic, and he plays again tomorrow morning at 10:20. So my wife and I will be leaving as soon as I'm finished this to drive 11 and a half hours without stops. So of course we have to stop for fuel and bathroom breaks. So it'll probably be about 12 and a half hours to get there by puck drop by tomorrow morning by 10:20. So I thank the chairman for letting me quickly present these bills. So again, I do apologize for stopping.
International economic.
It is. It's actually rivals. It's called Pee Wee Quebec. It's the largest ice hockey tournament for kids. It's rivals the
World Series baseball.
Little League World Series. So, all right, Senate Bill 453. This bill is very simple. As we know, the Preakness is the largest, one of the largest economic engines in our state. That third Saturday in May, 12 races are run that day. One of those is an Arabian race. It is actually the UAE President's Cup, and in that race, Arabian horses run, and legally, it has to be run at Pimlico. And as you know, this committee, with what we did with upgrading the Pimlico race course, we allowed the Pimlico to move to Laurel for a year so that we can upgrade Pimlico. Well, one thing we realized was we did not allow this race to transfer to Laurel. So unfortunately, this emergency legislation, if it does not pass, that race cannot continue this year at Laurel. So what this is just a technical fix to allow that race, which runs every year at at Pimlico, to run at Laurel and continue our 12 race meet for for Preakness Day. So with that, Mr. President, I ask for favorable consideration to allow Preakness Day to continue with the 12 meet race that we normally see.
Thank you. I see Mr. Vaza and Ms. Johansson have signed up, but I'm going to bet that they think your testimony was outstanding and don't need to testify. Is that correct? Sounds like it. Okay.
All right. Next bill, Senate Bill 425. This is a bill that we dealt with last year. Mr. Chairman, I know that you have a work group on this. This deals with the land records that came up out of the state archives and the viewing of those and the cost and the fees. And last year we discussed this. We had a lot of turmoil on it. And I know the agency's trying to figure out how they're going to handle their budget, because as we try to deal with the budget issues in this committee, and the governor tries to balance the budgets, that agency unfortunately has seen a decrease in their funding. And one of the ways that they can self-fund is to raise these fees on viewing these documents. And unfortunately, some of the users has seen a serious increase where it is almost restrictive for users to go in there and see that. And the biggest one comes from land records. That's the largest volume where people actually go in and view that. And we actually have an amendment that I can submit to committee council that I believe the industry has come together and said that they're willing to accept. I heard from the House sponsor that the agency is willing to accept it. And what that basically says is that currently any of the fees that are there that the agency can actually raise or lower as they see fit, except for the land records, those would actually go through a regulatory process for any fee changes that they want to make for those. So anything else can be done by the department themselves, but for land records, again, that is the largest volume that gets reviewed. Those would have to go through a regulatory process, and I do have an amendment that I can submit to council for review on those.
Great.
Or for that.
Do you have, so it looks like you have somebody on the panel, maybe? Yeah. Sarkar.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzone, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Shauli Sarkar, and I'm here representing the Maryland State Bar Association in support of Senate Bill 425. We support this bill that establishes standards for any reasonable fees established by the Maryland State Archives, with clear language of fee setting by regulation, allowing for the opportunity to have public notice and comment, as well as legislative review of the proposed fee. Any fees should be fair and in line with comparable states without prohibitively restricting public access. The ability to access public records is a necessary and vital component to many of our members' cases and settlements, and by extension, their clients. Having this fee to download public records and real estate documents would have a serious impact on multiple practice areas and would affect our solo and small firm attorneys all the way to large firms, business attorneys, estates and trust attorneys, and family law attorneys. By example, some of the matters that could be impacted would be issues related to homeownership, so tax sale foreclosures, mortgage foreclosures, estate planning, as we said, family law, marital property, evictions, and public benefits that are linked to those cases. Given the quick consultation times that are needed to give clients immediate feedback, it's imperative that our attorneys continue to have that access. And there's also often in litigation a very quick turnaround time needed, and there's no alternative to access these records. Unregulated and unpredicted fees can significantly impact the ability to practice and the pace of law firms to continue serving clients, as well as individuals and businesses that are trying to resolve these matters on their own. For these reasons, we respectfully request a favorable report on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
This question's for Senator Jennings. So there's a rumor out there that you're better at ice hockey than your son, and I just need to clarify for the record.
Without a doubt, I've never played.
Okay.
Yeah, he's tried to get me out there.
Any
I will tell you
legitimate questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, last one, Senator.
Last one, and it's a little longer, but I'll be quick. Last year, Senate Bill 424, the state enacted a provision diverting $25 million annually for fiscal years 2026 through 2029 from the Land Preservation Special Fund to the state's general fund. This diversion reduces the funding available for Maryland's core land preservation programs funded through the state's transfer tax. Senate Bill 424 repeals that diversion requirement for fiscal years 2027 through 2029, ensuring that $25 million annually remains in a land preservation special fund rather than being transferred to the general fund. This bill simply ensures that those special dedicated funds remain where they were intended to go, protecting Maryland's natural resources, farmland, forests, and open space. 424 does not create new spending. It does not increase taxes. It preserves the integrity of an existing funding structure that Maryland relies on for long-term conservation planning. Programs supported through this fund include Program Open Space, Agricultural Land Preservation Fund, the Rural Legacy Program, and the Heritage Conservation Fund. All are critical tools for maintaining the land base that supports our rural communities, environmental priorities, and agricultural economy. This legislation is especially important for Maryland's agricultural farms facing increased developmental pressure, rising land values, and higher operating costs. When preserving funding is reduced, the state's ability to protect agricultural land through easements is weakened. And unfortunately, as we know, when agricultural land is lost to development, it is rarely recovered. So with that, Mr. President, you know, I know it's tough budget times, but hopefully we can look at restoring this funding in this budget year as we go forward. So with that, I ask for favorable consideration.
Thank you, Senator. Questions for the Senator? There are a number of people signed up. If you're signed up, come on up.
And I will say he's playing in a 18,000 person arena.
Wow.
There's a big Jumbotron. It's going to be a big game tonight, but tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
well, enjoy.
Caps Arena has 18,000 people. That's how big this thing is. Yeah.
Whoever would like to start.
I can go first. Chair Gazzoni and members of the committee, I'm Kristen Kirkwood. I'm the Executive Director of Hartford Land Trust in Hartford County, and I'm also the Board Chair of Forever Maryland, which represents land trusts across the state of Maryland. I want to thank Senator Jennings for his sponsorship of this bill. Forever Maryland is a statewide coalition representing more than 30 land trusts and land conservation organizations in every part of the state. Land trusts work across the state to conserve farms, forests, waterways, wildlife habitat, and culturally significant landscapes in collaboration with state and local governments. Our testimony today not only represents those land conservation organizations, but I believe you have before you written testimony that represents what we have collated to be nearly 75 organizations. These represent a diverse group, including hunter and sportsman organizations such as Ducks Unlimited and the Isaac Walton League of America, environmental groups such as the Chesapeake Bay Foundation,
League of Conservation Voters, and Sierra Club, ag and forestry groups, such as the Farm Bureau, Delmarva Chicken, and Maryland Forest Association. As you can see, this is not just a pure land conservation issue. This touches all parts of our state and many different interest groups. Diverting these special funds for general fund purposes without a plan and timeline for paying them back undermines our health, our heritage, and our economy. It also weakens our long-term conservation planning and places Maryland's climate, conservation, and land preservation goals further out of reach. And as Senator Jennings said, these funding delays and diversions increase not only the cost of conservation, but as land prices rise and land is lost to development, there are properties that we will never get back. This is a time-sensitive issue. Maryland conservation success is also built on partnerships, and this relies upon stable and predictable funding. When funds are diverted, projects are delayed or abandoned, and landowners lose confidence in the state's commitment to preservation. As such, Forever Maryland and our member organizations respectfully request a favorable report.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni and members of the committee. For the record, Ryan Snow on behalf of Maryland Farm Bureau and its 7,000 members. Today, I'm here to support Senate Bill 424. Maryland's longstanding leadership in agricultural and open space preservation has been central to the success of our farming communities and the health of our state's natural resources. The state transfer tax has played a vital role in sustaining this commitment by providing reliable funding for program open space, MALF, and Rural Legacy Program. Together, these programs are the backbone of Maryland's efforts to safeguard our farmland, protect our natural resources, and ensure that our working lands remain productive for generations to come. Maryland's agricultural lands are irreplaceable. Once farmland is lost, it rarely returns to production, and the consequences extend far beyond acreage. Preserved lands support food security, maintain rural economies, protect wildlife habitat, and enhance the water quality of the Chesapeake Bay. Programs like those supported by the state transfer tax offer farmers a voluntary, market-based tool to keep their land in agriculture and preserve the scenic and environmental qualities that benefit all Marylanders regardless of zip code. Protecting these funding streams that Maryland continues to be a national model for conservation and responsible land stewardship. For these reasons, Maryland Farm Bureau strongly supports Senate Bill 424 and urges a favorable report. Strengthening Maryland's land preservation programs is an investment in agriculture, but more importantly, an investment in our state's environment, economy, and future. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Jones. I'm here today representing the Land Preservation Trust in Northern Baltimore County. I promise I'll try to skate through my testimony as quickly as possible. We'll do a check on it later. Never mind, I can't help it. I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to testify here today is I've been involved in these issues for a while, and I believe that the land trust community has always understood that in tough times of budget, sometimes money needs to be shifted about. And in 2016, in recognition of what happened prior to that, legislation was passed that kind of says, okay, every once in a while, you may need to dip into these funds, but let's talk about repaying it for 3 years afterwards. It was quite a surprise when the proposal last year in the BRFA got rid not just of the $100 million in funding, but also of any requirement for repayment over the years. I would respectfully request that you rethink that position. We understand the position where the budget is now, but these farms and these funds are important for the long-term health of the Bay, for the long-term economy, and for the future farming in the state. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlotte Davis. I'm the Executive Director of the Rural Maryland Council, also serving as co-chair of Partners for Open Space. We're the statewide steering group that works to support program open space and those funding programs. Here in support of Senate Bill 424, asking that the funds that have been diverted be repaid. These funds are important for Maryland's agriculture economy, our tourist economy, and rural economies. So for agriculture, Beacon just released a study out of Salisbury University with support from our BIDCO that agriculture supports $30.2 billion of economic impact in our state and over 108,000 jobs. Tourism generates $31.4 billion in economic impact and supports 190,000 jobs. So these funds are important for our rural economies, and so we ask for your favorable support of Senate Bill 424. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Bean with the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy, here to again express support for Senate Bill 424. And I'll express my support for the senator for bringing this forward by being brief, and echo the sentiments of our colleagues. Program Open Space is the key mechanism by which we do land conservation on the Eastern Shore, be it state and local parks, trails, and obviously, given the agricultural footprint of the Eastern Shore, a lot of farm preservation. So having this as a reliable funding source is terribly important to us on the Eastern Shore, and we urge a favorable report on this.
My name's Harry Sanders. I'm with a little group called the Friends of Jerusalem Mill, and I came here almost 40 years ago when Senator Amos was chairman of the Budget Taxation Committee to ask for funds to restore the old Jerusalem Mill. Since that time, through Program Open Space, we've purchased all of the other buildings in the little historic village within the Gunpowder Falls State Park. We've had visitors from every state, 37 foreign countries, and the impact economically and aesthetically, historically, has been tremendous. So we fully support Program Open Space because of its impact that it's had on our community and the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for this panel? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We have one virtual, Owen Bailey. Bailey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Owen Bailey. I'm the chair, Charlotte's co-chair for Partners for Open Space, a statewide coalition whose sole goal is to protect the funding for the various programs under the transfer tax, also known as Program Open Space. You have our written comments, so I'll be brief and just say that this bill restores a promise that was removed from last year's BRFA, reinstating the commitment to the importance of maintaining trust with Program Open Space, ensuring that conservation programs are made whole. For that, we urge a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Bailey? Thank you all very much. Okay, we're going to move back to our regularly scheduled program. 427. Go get them.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm going to mention my panel so that they all know what order we're going to speak in. We have the County Executive of Frederick County, Jessica Fitzwater. We have Kevin Kennelly from MEDCO, the Legislative Director, and then Steve McKay, Frederick County Council Member, and finally Brett Simmons, Frederick County resident, and the primary advocate for this legislation. He is also a CPA and will be able to answer some technical questions. So let me start off by telling you what this bill will do. It is a data center personal property tax enabling bill. It will enable counties and the city of Baltimore to establish a new subclass of personal property tax rates for qualified data centers. There is no requirement. It is enabling legislation. So just for review, what is a business personal property tax? It is furniture, fixtures, computer equipment, machinery, tools, and heavy equipment. State law currently allows a locality to tax certain classes of personal property at lower rates, including computer equipment for data centers. So Why do we want to enable counties to have this flexibility? What will it do for them? It will allow our counties to implement a limited and very targeted business personal property tax that would remain competitive with Northern Virginia while providing revenue potential for this industry. So Northern Virginia has this already. Their average personal property tax rate is anywhere between $3 and $5 for every $100 in value of equipment and materials compared to Maryland's non-existent rate. So for example, what does Loudoun County charge? $4.15. I pick out Loudoun for two reasons. Very close to Frederick County and also probably the largest county in the country for data centers. A personal property tax will not discourage data centers from Maryland. I mean, it's a natural progression. They're in Virginia. Loudoun County is saturated. And it will keep us competitive with Virginia in the data center market. Data centers can create substantial local impacts, I should say challenges, on infrastructure, land conservation, public health, energy, and water demands. And we need to make sure that given those challenges, and we haven't been able to quantify them yet because unfortunately a very good study was postponed, but we are concerned based on the experiences of some other states, such as Oregon. We want to make sure that given the incentives that have been provided, that we are getting a sufficient return. So offsetting these impacts will require a large public investment that falls largely on our local governments, particularly water, roads, public safety, we're learning. So this bill will provide local governments with a very flexible tool. And we all know that in terms of creating revenues, we need to do it, but we need to be very strategic about it. It will ensure a source of funding to meet their needs that are largely created by data centers. A single data center typically has business personal property valued in the millions. Revenues has allowed counties in Virginia to actually lower real estate taxes. That has happened in Loudoun. They've built new schools in Mecklenburg, developed an affordable housing trust in Henrico, established a rainy day fund in Loudoun and Prince William. In fact, I learned a new term today. It's called the embarrassment of riches. If only we would have that problem. But how did that problem get coined? Again, I'm going to refer to Loudoun County, which has this enabling legislation. In fiscal year 2023, they obtained $576 million in revenue from this tax alone. 3 years later, fiscal year 26, that rose to $800 million just in Loudoun County. 41% increase in 3 years. They don't know what to do with their money. They've actually lowered rates, and that's why we have this new term called embarrassment of riches. So there are concerns about the bill. Well, we're going to hear them, that it will set a precedent for different industries to receive different treatment. Well, data centers have already been getting special treatment. You may all recall 2020 SB 397 that permits the sales and use tax exemptions for data centers. The same law also permits counties and municipalities to lower the business personal property assessment for data centers. Data centers are different than other commercial businesses. They're not small businesses. They are highly lucrative. They're a high-growth industry. They have few competitive threats. They're a very different animal than other commercial endeavors. I think that pretty much summarizes my overview. I do want to mention this is a bipartisan bill, and it is being cross-filed in the House by a member from the Eastern Shore. And with that overview, I would like to pass the information on to my panel.
Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee for the opportunity to speak today on SB 427. For the record, I'm Frederick County Executive Jessica Fitzwater. And as you all know, data centers have operated in Maryland for years, but Frederick County is home to a first-of-its-kind master-planned hyperscale campus called Quantum Frederick, now under construction at the former Alcoa East Alco Works site. That project has already generated over $50 million in recordation tax one-time revenue, and we anticipate roughly $68.8 million annually in real property taxes once the currently approved projects are built out. These are transformative dollars for local infrastructure, for schools and public services. Yet, as you just heard, our current tax framework leaves significant revenue on the table. In Northern Virginia, data centers contribute over $1 billion of tax revenue to local governments, and the majority of that is collected as business personal property taxes on computer equipment. Maryland counties need the same targeted tool to ensure fair, sustainable contributions from this unique industry. SB 427 is a local option, not a mandate. It allows counties to establish a subclass for data center personal property and set a special rate tailored to the industry's distinct characteristics without imposing a general business personal property tax that would burden legacy sectors like advanced manufacturing, craft beverage production, and the life sciences. This precision of this bill protects our existing employers while fairly capturing the costs data centers place on local systems. SB 427 will help counties meet core obligations, roads, education, public safety, while reducing pressure on our residents. So on behalf of Frederick County and communities across Maryland, I urge a favorable report on SB 427. Thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of the bill. It'll be no surprise that counties are looking for ways and flexibility to reduce pressure on homeowners, keep people in their homes. We know assessments are rising. We're not looking to raise property tax rates, real property tax rates. That's regressive. So we are looking for ways. I think that this industry is more than willing to have these conversations locally, and this would need to be a local process. You would have a local public hearing. You'd bring in all the opponents, the proponents, opponents, and have that conversation. Right now, we can't have that conversation. You heard a lot about Northern Virginia. I think the industry understands where they are. They understand this is like a natural succession, like the senator said. So this provides more flexibility. It's not a mandate. It's another tool to address a growing industry in Maryland. Obviously, a lot of talk about this industry on both sides. We're hearing it every day. But it's another tool to put upon the table to have conversations with the industry and with our communities about the impact. And again, hopefully reduce pressure on homeowners and shift some of that pressure onto the folks making a lot of money in our state. So with that, we'd ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Gazzone, Vice Chair Rosapep, and esteemed senators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on Senate Bill 427. My name is Steve McKay. I serve on the Frederick County Council, and I urge you to support this bill. There's really no question that the reason Maryland has encouraged data center development in our state is the revenue potential of the industry. As Frederick County has studied and planned for data centers, we have looked toward the experience of Northern Virginia, both good and bad, to help guide our way. What is very clear is that the business personal property tax has been the primary revenue source for Northern Virginia. You've heard about some of the numbers that this has generated. What I wanted to follow up with that, though, is that even with and despite those very high revenue numbers that you heard, the data center industry there continues to grow unabated there. They accept that tax. In Frederick County, we do not charge a business personal property tax because of the impact it could have on our diverse business economy and particularly upon our small businesses. The data center industry is different. They have an outsized impact on our resources, our communities, and on our utility bills. They drive the construction of new power lines that threaten Maryland farms and landowners across the state. This bill will provide a powerful tool for Maryland counties, enabling them to tailor their tax strategy to this industry. In Frederick County, it will allow us to institute a business personal property tax on this single sector without impacting our wider business community. In other counties that already impose a business personal property tax and who may wish to incentivize data center growth, it provides a tool to lower the tax rate for this sector and encourage greater development there. In closing, the bill will not impact state revenue projections. It will, however, represent an enormous opportunity for Frederick County and other Maryland counties to more effectively leverage the revenue potential of this industry, and I urge you to support this legislation.
Good afternoon. My name is Brent Simmons, and I'm a practicing CPA in Frederick County, and I thank the committee for the opportunity to speak to you in favor of Senate Bill 0427. For me, the driving force of Senate Bill 0427 is the protection and continued support of small businesses while increasing county revenues via data center industry standard of imposing a county business personal property tax. Senate Bill 0427 has a zero cost to the state of Maryland. It simply authorizes counties another option to balancing their budgets amongst the ever-changing budget environment. Senate Bill 0427 does not create a new personal property tax on qualified data centers. Currently, Maryland counties are authorized under Section 6-202 of the Tax Property Article to impose a business personal property tax on businesses, including qualified data centers. Currently, Frederick County chooses not to impose the business personal property tax in order to attract and support small businesses. However, the data centers are continuing to be constructed and opening for business in Frederick County. Under current Maryland law, if Frederick County desires to collect personal property tax from data centers, consequently, the personal property tax must be imposed on all businesses. This would create a disproportionate burden to small businesses that Frederick County currently chooses not to support. Alternatively, Frederick County would be fiscally irresponsible for not collecting the significant revenue from a business personal property tax on qualified data centers. Senate Bill 0427 would remedy this situation by authorizing a county such as Frederick County with the option to increase tax revenue only from qualified data centers without negatively affecting small businesses. I would ask that you vote in support of this, and I ask that it would be done this session so that lost revenues would not occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for this panel? Thank you all very much. I have, I think, one more favorable. Mariah Davis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Mariah Davis. I'm a contractor with Nature Forward. We recently started a group called Marylanders for Data Center Reform. We're very concerned about the environmental impacts that data centers are going to have on communities and also ratepayers. We support a favorable report for this bill, SB 427. Communities are struggling to keep up with increased costs of living, from rising energy costs to federal budget cuts and job loss. People are really struggling. Simultaneously, state and local governments are facing budget deficits. Marylanders deserve more. We need better planning for data centers, and with this bill, local governments have the authority to address their budget challenges and bring real dollars back to communities. The data center industry is one of the most resource-intensive industries of our lifetime. A 2024 study on the local impacts of data centers from Cornell University found that public health costs are felt more in disadvantaged communities, where the per-household health burden could be up to 200 times more than in less impacted communities. Who's paying for that? Families pay those costs right now, but data centers should pay too. SB 427 protects taxpayers, ratepayers, and provides long-term investments that address local needs. We strongly support counties to have the option to assess personal property taxes on data centers to offset impacts of data center development and fund local needs. We urge a favorable report for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, I have two unfavorables, some folks from the Tech Council. Kelly Schultz, maybe just one. Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kelly Schultz, and I'm the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council, and I am here to respectfully oppose Senate Bill 427. I'll just go to the nuts and bolts of the revenues. I respect my fellow Frederictonians that were here on the last panel. I will say 3 years ago, I sat on a work group for Frederick County government. And it was a bipartisan decision of that work group to not suggest an additional tax for the data centers. And this is what I'll say, and I know all of you are very smart in this room. You understand economic development. But for the fact that they come, there would be no tax revenue at all. So I want to just state a couple of very concise things about where we are right now, specifically on the Frederick County project. There is no real comparison between what Virginia is doing with taxation with Maryland. We have to take that off the table. It's much cheaper to do business in Virginia. So if you did a whole complete study of all of the taxes that are utilized, that would be a complete difference, right? So comparing one tax to another is not fair. The one project in Frederick County is set to create tax revenues of $215 million upon completion of that project, $215 million to the County of Frederick. That's about 40% of their current budget right now. But for that project being complete, that $215 million wouldn't exist. In 2025, there were $54 million of recordation taxes that was collected by the county. And as it pertains to the good senator that proposed the bill for mandatory ag preservation funding, Frederick County last year was the only, if not one of the only counties that actually put money into ag preservation because of the recordation taxes that were collected by the county. So we have to ask ourselves, how much is where we're going to be able to continue to attract businesses? I respectfully oppose and would ask you to oppose Senate Bill 427 for the sake of economic development. Thank you.
Questions for the witness? Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the hearing on that bill. We're going to move on to Senate Bill 28. Senator McCray. Sure you bring up your panel. We're joined by Senator Kramer from the Finance Committee as their second on this bill. Welcome.
Mr. Chair.
And I will remind everyone, this is not the Finance Committee, though. This is the Budget and Tax Committee.
This is B&T. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, For the record, Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District. I come to you for something that you've heard a number of times, Senate Bill 28, just ensuring that our state workers have the opportunity for arbitration. I come before you as a member of the IBEW. I'm an electrician within the electricians local union, and one of the things is when management and when employees cannot get to some level of agreement, we do have a process which is called arbitration through it. Like I said, Mr. Chair, this is something that this committee has seen several years. So I like to see the folks that are testifying, Madam Secretary Treasurer Cherish Vick, Ms. Sandra Gates, and I see Denise Gilmore to my right, and I believe David may be there. Oh, Madam President, Donna Edwards, the big guns. And I'll stop right there, Mr. Chair.
I loved your statement to begin with also, Senator, that we have heard this
several years,
many times, and we're raring and ready to work on this.
Excellent. So, good afternoon. Denise Gilmore here with AFSCME Maryland. At its core, SB 28 is really a pretty simple bill. As it's basketball season, I'm going to start with a metaphor. Imagine a basketball game where the opposing team has possession of the ball. They decide to hold it. They refuse to advance it. They refuse to shoot, refuse to engage. There are no timeouts, no referee, no shot clock, no game clock. Nothing compels them to move it. There are no timeouts, no referee. They hold the ball on the side of the court indefinitely. As logical as that sounds, without structure, this is exactly what can happen at negotiations. Basketball adopted a 10-second half-court rule for this reason, to ensure that games move forward. The shot clock was added to prevent stalling, and referees are there to resolve disputes and enforce the rules so that the game can reach a fair and timely conclusion. We implemented timelines and a neutral decision maker because we don't want these games to last forever, and because fairness requires structure. Now, of course, negotiating the wages and working conditions for thousands of public servants isn't a game, but the principle is the same. Without clear timelines and a meaningful impasse procedure, negotiations can stall indefinitely. Senate Bill 28 provides the structure. It establishes timelines and provides for a neutral arbitrator to issue binding decisions when the parties reach impasse. Binding interest arbitration is not a radical concept. It is widely accepted mechanism for resolving disputes efficiently and fairly. It promotes good faith bargaining, prevents unnecessary delays, and reduces costs of protracted negotiations that can stretch on for years. SB 28 ensures that state and higher education employees are afforded the same fair and structured negotiations that so many of our public workers already have. We respect a fair and favorable report. As listed, David Wright, our counsel, is here if we have got technical questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosa Pepe, and members of this committee and the Finance Committee. My name is Cherish Vick. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of AFSCME Maryland Council 3. I'm also the Treasurer of AFSCME Local 112. I'm a state employee. I work in Prince George's County at the Department of Social Services, where I've worked for over 16 years. I'm testifying in support of this bill because I'm just trying to achieve the same rights as my peers. So here are the facts. As I stated, I'm a Maryland State employee. My impasse procedure, it's unproductive, non-binding, fact-finding process. My union brother, Mike McMillan, president of ATU 1300, he's a bus operator and a state employee at the Maryland Transit Administration. He has binding arbitration as an impasse procedure. I work in Prince George's County. My Council 3 executive board member, Rhonda Porter, is a county health department worker. She has binding arbitration as an impasse procedure. I actually share a building with her. So this building houses state, human service workers, county health department workers, and it is unfair that they have binding arbitration, and they also have the option to strike if they want. across the line from where I work in Washington, D.C., and north up in Pennsylvania, and in 25 other states, state employees have binding arbitration. I deserve to have the same collective bargaining rights that these other public service workers have. Please support Senate Bill 28. Maryland state employees are only asking for a fair, reasonable, and binding method to quickly resolve impasse if we reach one at the negotiations table. And Mr. Chair, if I may, can I have the AFSCME Maryland members who are present and those who support this bill to please stand?
Yes. He didn't say yes.
Oh, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandra Great. I am a member of AFSCME Local 1885, and I work at Morgan State University. I've been on the MSU bargaining team for the last 5 years. I want to thank my senator, Senator Corey McCray, my senator, for sponsoring and introducing this important legislation for so many of us, as you've seen. I was on the bargaining team from 2020 to 2023 when it took us 3 years to negotiate our contract. This wasn't our first contract. We've been covered by collective bargain for 20 years. While we were in negotiation for those 3 years, the issues we were bringing up simply weren't getting resolved. Our health and safety issues, like COVID protocols, were going unaddressed. One of my colleagues on the bargaining team caught COVID at work. His name, Casper McAllister. He worked in a heating plant and died for fighting for masks and gloves. Our members' compensations requests went unaddressed, while upper-level management was receiving promotions. The issues we were bringing up at the table felt like they were being just ignored, really. It was totally unproductive dynamic. I felt frustrated and very disrespected by my colleagues at Morgan State. All of this could have been avoided if we had enforceable timelines in negotiations and binding arbitration. Negotiations should be about compromise and coming together in a good faith effort to try and reach agreement, not stalling indefinitely to avoid resolution. Please pass Senate Bill 28 so we can have more meaningful, efficient, and productive negotiations in higher education. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. That's wonderful. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Donna Edwards. I'm president of the Maryland State and DC AFL-CIO, and you have heard this bill before. You have all of our testimonies. Binding arbitration is mutual beneficial to our state government, to our state employees in higher ed, and to the taxpayers. At its core, collective bargaining is about giving the people who do the work the meaningful input into how they are treated on the job. But without the tools that they can have a level playing field, then that really is not something that is achievable. It's smart policy. It's a partnership that works when you have mutual benefit. Both parties get to choose the third party that's going to be the arbiter. But more importantly, I was here. I was president of AFSCME when we finally got collective bargaining by an executive order. That was in 1996. Then we got it by law. You codified it only for state employees. At the last minute, the university was pulled out, so the state employees got it for the executive branch in 1998. And then we had to come back, and in 2001, we finally got collective bargaining for higher ed employees. Our higher ed and state employees are the backbone of government. They make all of our elected look good. Your constituents get the services that they provide, the education that they support. So I would ask that they have waited way too long to have this tool in the toolbox, to have a fair and level playing field, and I would ask that you pass Senate Bill 28. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, I think this is right. I think this is everyone who's testified in favor. There's one favor with amendment. Is that correct? Okay. Committee questions for this panel. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to all of you. Denise, quick question. Would it not be honest to say that without binding arbitration, there really is no collective bargaining? Would that not be an accurate assessment?
I mean, the fact-finding procedure that we have is just a recommendation. So when we reach conflict, what it often does is it just further delays the conflict. So binding arbitration offers an opportunity for actual closure to that conflict.
So the answer would be yes, we really don't have collective bargaining without the opportunity for binding arbitration, which the bill before us would provide, so that there's sincerity in the process. Would you agree with that?
I think state employees and higher education employees have been waiting a long time to finally have a real impasse procedure. Sir, thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted that clarification.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I want to thank you all for coming out. I know it's a sacrifice that you all come all the way down here to Annapolis. So I want to thank you for coming out here. Being a union representative for 31 years, I understand arbitration. I understand representation. I understand a safe working atmosphere in the workplace. It's very important. If we're not having the opportunity and the voice, you can work in unsafe areas. You cannot be represented at times, and that's a tragedy. Yes. So, you know, I know how that is, but more than anything, I want to thank you so much for the bill, good Senator, and for all you coming down. God bless you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions for this panel? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Secretary Weissman. Yes, we all love Senator McCray.
Jake does too.
I do.
Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee and Finance Committee. I got you. And thank you, Senator McCray, for your sponsorship. For the record, Jake Weissman, Secretary, Department of Budget and Management. Here, support with amendments. DBM supports collective bargaining for state employees and appreciates the sponsors' work on this legislation. We've engaged with the proponents of this bill over multiple legislative sessions and are really happy to be here today to support this bill with one amendment. We do want to recognize this bill has changed substantially from the first time it was introduced. I want to thank the sponsor and the advocates for working with the department on those changes over the years. The one amendment that we've proposed, that we've discussed with the proponents and the sponsor, is straightforward. It's that when an arbitrator issues a written award, that award should include a multi-year fiscal impact statement showing the multi-year general fund costs that will be prepared collaboratively with both parties. This is not about second-guessing the arbitrator's decision. It's about making sure that when an award is implemented, the governor, the legislature, and the public understand the associated costs in the current and future fiscal year. DBM respectfully urges the committee to adopt this amendment and recommends a favorable report on SB 28 as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the Secretary? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Sherry Ross.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to offer testimony on SB 28. My name is Sherry Rojas. I'm the Senior Director of Labor for the USMO. You have our written testimony, so I'll just highlight a few notes. This will be the third major statutory change to collective bargaining in recent years and seemingly attempts to fix a problem that just just does not exist for the system. Under current law, a neutral fact-finding process already exists to help resolve negotiation impasse. Over the past 25-plus years, the USM and our institutions have been able to successfully negotiate at the table without the need for third-party intervention in almost every instance. And the existence of this process undoubtedly pushed both sides to reach agreement in consolidated negotiations, which the parties were able to do. Where an impasse can't be resolved, the law requires all existing terms and conditions under the expiring MOU to remain in full force and effect. In other words, management is prohibited from simply implementing its own terms unilaterally. Notably, if the terms required to be implemented go unfunded, SB 28 would bind the institutions to implement the final award without additional resources. The USM has seen cuts to the budget over the past 2 fiscal years of 10%, totaling $200 million. Our institutions have also seen $133 million reduction in federal dollars, including grants. The imposition of additional policy changes at this time would be more than challenging for our campuses and would be compounded with passage of other pending labor bills. For these reasons, the USM respectfully asks for an unfavorable report on SB 28 as written. The USM has shared alternatives for consideration with the sponsor, including exclusion of the USM from the bill. If the committee is inclined to move this bill forward, we would appreciate the opportunity to offer amendments and participate in such discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Rojas, good afternoon to you. I have to say that while I am disappointed, I'm not surprised by the university system being here in opposition to this legislation, because labor inequality seems to be the hallmark of our great university system. And at least you're being very consistent in that regard. Let me ask you a question. The bill, as I understand it, provides that this would be a constitutional amendment, would it not?
Yes, it would.
And as such, it would need to be approved by the voters of the great state of Maryland, would it not?
Yeah, that's correct.
And if the voters of the state of Maryland were to say to the General Assembly, we support this constitutional amendment because we think this is the right thing to do to support our employees in this state, the folks who keep the trains running on schedule, do you not believe that it would be prudent upon the university system to accept the will of the people of the state and get on board with the 21st century attitude towards labor and all that labor brings to the table, and join hands with the good voters of the state? Is it your sentiment that the university system is not interested in the will of the voters?
No, not at all. And I don't think that I said any of that in my testimony, but I appreciate the question.
No, that's why I'm asking the question.
And I would just like to clarify, I mean, I'm not sitting here today saying that we oppose this in any form. I did say that we have offered some alternatives for consideration. We're just opposed to this bill as written.
And I've seen some of the alternatives that the university system has offered in the past, and I would have to proffer to the committee that they really aren't valid offers that are meaningful. And with that, Mr. Chair, I thank you and appreciate the opportunity to have had this conversation with Ms. Rojas.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for missing the earlier part of your testimony. My understanding is that the cost estimate for implementing this for the university estimated at $500,000. Does that ring a bell?
So I believe in the fiscal note information that was submitted by the University System of Maryland office included costs across all of our institutions, and I think it was in the millions of dollars, not $500,000. I mean, yeah.
to administer it?
We were including costs for both hiring additional FTE and staff to oversee that process, the costs for the arbitrator, who would be appointed at the beginning of the process and would have to be sort of employed throughout the entire process, and the costs of any arbitration hearing that would have to take place.
Are you aware that DBM estimated a much, much lower cost for state employees not in the university system?
I was not aware, but thank you for noting that.
I would encourage you to look into it, because I think there's some overestimation going on in the universities.
Well, with all due respect, I mean, I have participated personally in arbitrations in other jurisdictions,
Right.
and I find those costs to be pretty reasonable.
Okay, well, it'd be interesting to look at the DBM numbers. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next bill.
Can I hang out?
If you continue with if you continue with your level of questioning, everyone does when they're here.
I've noticed you got some new
I'm going to mail her. Take it easy. I think she did. I'm going to send her a letter. Thank you.
Senator McCray, 607.
This is not finance, Mr. Chair, so I do understand the assignment. For the record,
You absolutely do understand the culture. I'm well aware and grateful.
yes, sir. For the record, Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District, and colleagues, I come to you, Mr. Chair, on behalf of Senate Bill 607. Senate Bill 607 just transitions in reference to the subtraction modification for public safety employees from 15 to 20. There's a gradual transition that actually takes place here. I have my guy Tom next to me from the left, one of the firefighters, but like I said, this is inclusive of public safety, so it's correctional officers and things of that nature too.
Chairman Gazzone, members of Budget and Taxation, thank you for the opportunity to sit here in support of Senate Bill 607. You know the testimony. We've already had a similar bill before you this year. This bill here, we believe, actually eases the burden of the increase by equally spreading it out over the next 5 years. We urge your support. I'm ready to answer any questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Questions for Senator or his witness? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Nancy King Show. 5 bills for your enjoyment pleasure. 344. Got a panel, bring them up. Every time, every time.
Okay, you got it. Okay, good. You know, we could just save some time and you could just pass these bills and then we wouldn't have to mess with it. Just saying.
Agreed.
Just saying. Okay, we'll start, Mr. Chairman, with Senate Bill 344. Property tax, agricultural use assessment, community solar energy generating systems. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, agrivoltaics is defined as the simultaneous use of areas of land for both solar power generation and agriculture. And under current law, land used for agrivoltaics may qualify for an agricultural use assessment only if approved by December 31st, 2025, while a related personal property tax incentive for agrivoltaic community solar extends through December 31st, 2030. Senate Bill 344 will simply align the two tax laws so that both the agricultural use assessment and the personal property tax incentives related to agrivoltaics extend through December 31st, 2030. Passage of this legislation will not create a new benefit nor broaden eligibility. It reconciles existing provisions so that Maryland's approach to agrivoltaics remains coherent and continues the framework that has been in place, and I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 344.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor? Okay. Who goes next?
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss Senate Bill 344 this afternoon. My name is Kelly Buchanan, and I am a Senior Policy and Strategy Manager with Lightstar Renewables. Lightstar is a community solar developer based out of Boston, but we have a significant interest in Maryland community solar, specifically agrivoltaics. We have a pipeline of about 121 megawatts in Maryland, all of which are agrivoltaic projects. Simply put, that is farming in between the panels and underneath the panels and in their rows within the array. Typically, our projects produce things like hay or soy with a wheat rotation. In other states, we also have projects that produce vegetables, and berries are also a good fit for these projects. And then there's grazing as well for both cattle and sheep, but we tend to focus on commodity and specialty crops. Senate Bill 344 is an important bill because it does two things. As Senator King mentioned, this bill would extend the deadline for these projects to qualify for agricultural use assessment, and that is important because they are now required to do so to be able to participate in the community solar program. We're excited that definition exists because it ensures that these projects are treated like any other farm in the state of Maryland and are also held to the same standards. And then secondly, this bill is important because it allows the qualification period to align with the incentive opportunity for the personal property tax exemption, which is found in another section of the tax statute. So it's important to note that agrivoltaics projects require a longer development time frame, and we simply haven't had the time to realize or actualize these projects in the ground. So simply extending the sunset would be beneficial because we can bring these projects to Maryland that offer a different type of solar to communities and benefits to farmers and the opportunity to expand clean energy goals while also protecting farmland. With that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Next witness.
Me? Hello, Chairman. Thank you for having me. I'm Jennifer Morash, Chief Agrivoltaics Officer for Good Idea Solar. Prior to taking that job in October, I was working at the University of Maryland doing a postdoc, and my research focus was agrivoltaics. So I thought I would give you some insights into Marylanders' perceptions of agrivoltaics. First and foremost, Marylanders believe that we need solar in order to meet renewable energy goals, but 70% are concerned about using solar on farmland. However, the vast majority of the people that we surveyed, which was about 400, believed that agrivoltaics could be used as a tool to help change perceptions of solar. 35% of landowners say that they are more likely to consider solar if agrivoltaics are an option. So this demonstrates that agrivoltaics are a tool that helps to relieve some of the concerns over land conflicts in Maryland when it comes to solar and agriculture. Another thing that I would like to point out is that there's an opportunity for farmers that comes from agrivoltaics that to me is not very dissimilar to the tobacco buyout program of the early 2000s. That program offered farmers $1 per pound. At the time, they averaged about 2,000 pounds per acre, and that program gave payouts for 10 years. As I'm sure you know, our solar contracts range from 25 to 30 years, and we can offer much more than the $2,000 that they received through the tobacco buyout program. For the counties that had the highest number of participants in that program, we now have the most diverse agricultural communities. That money allowed farmers in those communities to take on practices that have high startup costs but higher profit margins. These are the kind of opportunities that we would like to present to farmers, and the reason that this bill is important is because agrivoltaics in general cost more money, and this indirect tax assessment helps defer some of the costs for us so that we can provide those opportunities. With all this in mind, we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Rory Murray here also on behalf of Lightstar Renewables. I have nothing of substance to add. I'll just say me too and thank you.
Excellent testimony. In fact, this is the testimony of the day, I would say. Any questions from members of the committee? Are there any members of the committee? Nope, no questions. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
We now move on to, we keep Senator King, but we move on to Senate Bill 410.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, as of fiscal 2024, there were over 3.3 million registered library borrowers in Maryland. Those residents visited libraries across the state approximately 17 million times and were aided by Maryland's 689 professional librarians and 3,475 staffers. To assist our public librarians and staff in meeting the vast needs of our library users, the State Library Resource Center provides cooperative, cost-effective resources, training, and services for our libraries and their customers. The State Library Resource Center is funded at a per-state resident rate. The State Library Resource Center has been level funded for 3 fiscal years. Although the SLRC has adapted to level-funded resources and increased costs, this level of constraint is not sustainable and risks undermining their services. Senate Bill 410 will look to increase that per-resident funding beginning in FY 2028 through FY 2032, and passage of this legislation will allow our state library to continue to offer the services that are so important to our libraries and our residents who depend on them, and I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 410.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, thank you, Senator King, for sponsoring the bill. Thank you, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, committee members for hearing us today. Thank you also to all the senators who met with myself and my statewide colleagues last week for Library Legislative Day. It was a great day, and we all enjoyed talking with you. We appreciate the time you took to meet with us. I'm Liz Sunderman-Zinger. I am the Executive Director of External Affairs in the Central Library at the Enoch Pratt Free Library, which is the State Library Resource Center of Maryland. And I'm here today to urge you to support this small funding increase. We support Maryland digital equity by selecting and paying for databases and other digital resources that directly impact the bottom line of our county and regional library systems. We provide high-speed internet to public libraries, many K-12 schools, and 25 municipalities across the state. As Senator King indicated, we've been flat funded for several years, and it is already having an impact on the public services we provide. Some of the departments are open for fewer hours. Some departments have become appointment only. And I know in the letters of report you've received and the testimony you've heard in previous years, you've heard about the importance of interlibrary loan and the databases we provide to K-12 schools. So this year I'm bringing you a new point that I haven't brought up before, but we are now being forced to look at the cost of some really important print resources that Marylanders need to learn about state and federal laws. I think civic knowledge is increasingly important in this time, and we're the only public library in the state or the region that provides unfettered access to these materials, and will also help folks who can't get to Baltimore find the sections they need. We'll scan it and email it to them. So resources like the Supreme Court Reporter, which covers every course the court hears and provides background, case history, and other important ancillary information, cost $13,000 a year. The annotated U.S. Code, all the laws of the land with important clarifying details and cross-references, costs $30,000 a year. These prices continue to climb. Please enact the bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sir.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. My name is Seth Hirschberger. I'm the Director of Wicomico Public Library. In Wicomico County, the State Library Resource Center has a direct impact on the services that we're able to offer to residents in Wicomico County. Through the consortium sharing, Maryland residents are able to secure electronic resources at a scale no single county could achieve alone. That purchasing power is especially important in counties like Wicomico, Somerset, Dorchester, Caroline, Calvert, St. Mary's, Hartford, and Washington. It allows small and mid-sized library systems to provide research databases, digital learning tools, and specialized materials that would otherwise be out of reach. In FY25 alone, SLRC lent nearly 300,000 items statewide through interlibrary loan, and supported 1.5 million students in their database uses. Those services reach residents not just in rural counties, but in larger jurisdictions as well. And this is a statewide system that works because we participate in it together. When a patron in Salisbury, Maryland needs a specialized title, it might come from Baltimore. Or when a student in another part of the state needs access to a research database, it may be licensed through this shared model. The system works because it spreads costs across county lines. But it's under strain. SLRC has reduced its print budget and restricted services due to funding shortages, and without more stability, that's going to start impacting our patrons directly. It's a modest but important adjustment to keep this system stable. For counties large and small, it protects equitable access to shared resources. This bill would safeguard shared infrastructure that benefits every county represented on this committee. It protects rural access and reinforces strong library systems statewide. I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 410. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the committee? No. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 410, but it does not conclude the testimony by Senator King.
I'm just getting warmed up.
You're just getting warmed up. So now we're on 466.
Yes.
And do you have a panel?
I have, yes.
There you go. And here, excellent. Well, please proceed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, under current law, licensed physicians who serve as unpaid trainers, known as preceptors, may qualify for a state income tax credit if they supervise Maryland-based medical students in community-based clinical settings located in designated healthcare workforce shortage areas. Current law also requires students working with preceptors to complete 100 hours in each clinical rotation. Senate Bill 466 will do two things. First, it removes the requirement that eligible medical students must be enrolled in a Maryland medical school or training program. They can come from other states. Removing the in-state medical school requirement will bring more medical students to our rural areas. For example, students who are in school in West Virginia or Pennsylvania may be encouraged to do community-based clinical training in Western Maryland. And students are more likely to remain in the area where they have done their training, which will help grow our population of doctors. Second, this legislation reduces the number of hours for each clinical rotation from 100 to 90. Experienced physicians are more likely to serve as preceptors with this more manageable time commitment. Senate Bill 466 does not increase the tax credit, the maximum credit per physician, or the annual statewide cap on tax credit certificates, which remains at $100,000 per taxable year. Senate Bill 466 merely expands on the successful tax credit program to continue to support medical education and address workforce shortages across Maryland, and I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 466.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. My name is Steve Wise. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Academy of Family Physicians. This bill is an initiative of theirs, and it's also supported by MEDCO. The senator has summed it up very well. I would also direct your attention to a letter in the file from Dr. Ariel Warden-Jarrett, who's a Prince George's County family physician, who's been a preceptor. And I would add, in addition to the example that Senator King mentioned in Western Maryland, we also have medical schools in D.C., and this would allow students from those schools to come into surrounding counties as well. So we think it will make better use of the tax credit, which is going somewhat unused at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from members of the committee? I actually have a couple. You say it's somewhat unused. How used is it?
So there's a $100,000 cap, as the senator mentioned, and the average over the last 4 years has been around $30,000.
And how much is the tax credit per preceptor?
I think it's capped at $1,000.
$1,000 per year per preceptor?
Per precepted student, yes. And
per
I think
student or for
I think the 1,000 is per student, and then there's also a cap for each physician. So one physician can't take the whole $100,000, for example.
So only 30 students.
Correct.
Were covered by this.
Correct.
Do you have any idea how many preceptors covered those 30 students?
I don't. It's not 30. I know that some of
they
them
have multiple, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's less than 30, but
correct.
Gotcha. And what is the time commitment of the preceptor?
So the 90 hours, there's really no.
That's the hours. That's the time.
That's
commitment?
what it would be under this bill. It's currently 100.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very, very much.
Sure.
Unless there are other questions, that concludes the hearing.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Thank you.
468. I'm on a roll. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. In 2021, we established the Maryland Child Tax Credit to help low-income families with children. Last session, we expanded the credit to allow families earning up to $24,000 a year to qualify. This year, we're introducing Senate Bill 468, which gives local governments flexibility to strengthen support for children in their communities. This bill authorizes counties and the city of Baltimore to enact their own local child tax credit by mirroring the eligibility requirements of the Maryland Child Tax Credit. Counties would have the flexibility to determine the amount of the credit while maintaining statewide uniform rules for family income and child age. By enabling local governments to enact their own child tax credit, we give counties the ability to respond to the unique needs of their residents and further Maryland's commitment to reducing child poverty. Again, this is just enabling legislation, not a mandate. Child tax credits are a proven tool for reducing poverty, and this legislation will allow counties to provide greater security for those families with the most needs, and I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 468.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Kevin Canale here on behalf of the Maryland Association of Counties in support of Senate Bill 468. You have my written testimony. I can't do a better job of explaining the bill than the sponsor. I'll just say this is for extremely needy families. We'd appreciate this tool at the local level to help our communities. So we support the bill and ask for a favorable report.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Yes, Senator Hedelman.
Question. Senator King, did your county come to you to ask for this, or have counties requested this out of MEDCO, or you just think this is a good policy?
I just had some providers, yes, that brought it to us.
Providers, not the counties themselves.
Not the counties themselves.
Okay.
No.
I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. And Senator King. Oh, the two more witnesses? I'm sorry. My apologies. Please, the other witnesses, please come up.
No, this is the next one.
Are there any other witnesses here on the previous bill?
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure whether you were doing it. Okay.
Ladies first.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Chris Push, Executive Director on behalf of the Maryland State Child Care Association, in enthusiastic support of Senate Bill 468. At MSCCA, we see every day how hard families are working to stay afloat, and we know that tax credits can make a real difference in helping them maintain economic stability. Senate Bill 468 gives local jurisdictions a tool that they can directly support families when they need it the most. A local child tax credit is a simple but powerful strategy. It reduces child poverty and it eases the financial stress that so many families are feeling. When families receive these credits, they are able to cover the basics: food, rent, utilities, and maybe some child care. That stability helps parents stay in the workforce and supports healthier long-term development for children. One of the biggest strengths of the child tax credit is flexibility. Unlike programs that come with strict rules or limited uses, tax credits let families decide what they need most in that moment, whether that's diapers, transportation, or keeping the lights on. That's that kind of autonomy matters. We also know that for research from what we hear in our own communities, that when families have even a little more economic security, children do better. Their health improves, their school outcomes improve, and their long-term opportunities expand. Senate Bill 468 doesn't replace state or federal programs, it complements them. It gives local communities the ability to tailor support to their specific economic and childcare challenges. And right now, with the high costs and ongoing childcare shortages, families need every tool we can offer. For those reasons, MSCCA respectfully requests a favorable report.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Christopher Cano. Pleasure to be before the committee this session for the first time. I'm the Director of Political and Legislative Affairs for SCIU Local 500. And our members are public service workers, educators, child care workers, and many of our members are working parents. They're doing everything they're supposed to. They're the backbones of our community that are working hard, raising children, and contributing to the state, yet too many are struggling to make ends meet. And this tax credit for families living paycheck to paycheck will make a real difference. It'll mean catching up or avoiding eviction. It'll mean paying off that utility bill before they get shut off. It'll mean covering the child care costs while we have a child care enrollment freeze on our child care scholarships. It'll mean buying groceries without having to rely on food pantries. It'll mean purchasing those school supplies and clothing and medication for their children. Now, working families in this state are facing rising costs, and you all know that, whether it's housing, food, transportation, or child care. And most importantly about this legislation is that it helps working families, but it does not mandate anything. It is simply enabling legislation for local counties to take action. So thank you for Senator King for taking leadership on this issue, and thank you to you all for supporting our working families in this state. We urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you all very, very much. Mr. Chairman?
One more here, Mr. Chairman.
We're just still on the same last bill?
No.
No, next bill.
Next
We're
bill,
on the next
503. Yeah. Yep, 503.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, in 2021, the Growing Family Child Care Opportunities legislation was heard in EEE and passed as a pilot program. And in 2024, based on the amazing success of that program, it was heard again in EEE and established as a permanent program. Licensed family child care programs are distinct from child care centers and are typically operated by women in their homes caring for up to 8 children. These family child care programs are a critical component of the overall supply of child care and a necessary or preferable option for many parents due to cost, geographic proximity, hours of availability, and cultural or linguistic concerns. Participants in GoFCC receive support through a cohort model that has the benefit of helping to reduce provider isolation, and they receive training on topics such as licensing, the Child Care Scholarship Program, tracking expenses, filing taxes, and additional areas of training are available after talking directly with participants to gain a better idea of what they see as their greatest areas of need. The program is funded in the FY 2027 budget. Senate Bill 503 is asking for continued level funding for fiscal years 28 to 30. Our state depends on child care to keep parents earning while their children are in safe, quality child care programs, and I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 503.
Yep.
I got it. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lacey Eidman. I am the Senior Director of Child Care Programs and Services at Maryland Family Network, with direct oversight of the GoFCC program since its inception. I want to first thank you for the support over the years for this program. As the Senator said, it's been a wild success and has made a real difference in our state. Maryland, however, like much of the country over the last 3 decades, has faced a severe decline in the family child care field, and this shortage causes a significant unmet need in high poverty and rural areas, making it very difficult for our families. Without accessible care, we know that families struggle to work and go to school, which affects their stability and the local economy. This program is, in fact, helping to address that decline. While the program was designed to tackle the shortage in Maryland and reduce child care deserts, enhance their business sustainability, and improve access to high-quality child care, we also know we're stemming the flow of the closure, creating more options for our families. Through our child care resource centers, which MFN oversees, the program guides predominantly female entrepreneurs through the licensure process, which we have cut down to about 6 months from the standard 12 to 18 if they're not working with our coaches. By focusing on the dual needs of ensuring they are both high quality and financially sustainable, GoFCC aims to slow the decline even further and continue to bridge the gap between supply and demand. Your support has in fact allowed the program to ensure we are currently operating in 21 counties and Baltimore City. The other 2 counties are operating their own locally funded but similar program. While the GoFCC program is a proven solution to the child care crisis, the return on the investment is not just a data point. It is a child in care, it is a parent who is now able to go to work or school, and it is a new small business supporting our economy. Continued funding enables us to continue this work, support Maryland's families and our economy. Happy to answer any questions, hoping for a favorable support, and appreciate your consideration.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Chris Push, Executive Director on behalf of the Maryland State Child Care Association, representing center-based child care and family child care. And as the Office of Child Care co-chair, and we are in full support of Senate Bill 503, Growing Family Child Care Opportunities Program Funding Bill. This bill is incredibly important for expanding high-quality family child care across Maryland and supporting the dedicated professionals who provide it. Senate Bill 503 ensures that the governor includes $450,000 in the state budget for this program in the designated fiscal years, and it allows federal funds to be used when available. That funding goes directly towards startup needs, materials, curriculum, renovations, and the basic costs that make it possible to open or expand a family child care home. And this really matters. Maryland families depend on accessible, safe, and affordable child care, and family child care providers are the fabric of communities and often the ones serving neighborhoods where center-based care simply doesn't exist. They are small business owners, they are community anchors, and they are essential to our child care infrastructure. Funding this program does several things. It expands access by helping more providers open and sustain their programs, which increases child care slots statewide. It supports small business owners by reducing financial barriers and helping them build strong, long-term stability. It strengthens our workforce by retaining skilled educators and caregivers, and it promotes equity by encouraging partnerships with counties and child care resource centers so communities can tailor support to their local needs. At its core, SB 503 is an investment in Maryland's child care system, in our workforce, and in the families who rely on these services every day. Dedicated funding ensures that family child care remains accessible, sustainable, and equitable across the state. And for these reasons, we respectfully urge a favorable report.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. SEIU Local 500 represents early childhood educators and family child care providers here in Maryland. And none of you need to be educated on the fact that there's a child care enrollment freeze. And you need to be educated on the fact that we have a lot more young families than we can currently service. And so this bill goes a long way in addressing the barriers that family child care providers have, especially with the shortage of child care slots, particularly in underserved and rural communities. And the fact that a family child care center can open more quickly than large centers makes all the difference where there's not feasible to make those happen. And we support family child care providers being able to serve families that are struggling for care right now. And I think this is definitely something that everyone here, regardless of political party, political affiliation, or philosophy, can get behind, because it's going to reduce barriers for entrepreneurs to enter into the market, and it's going to ensure that we're promoting entrepreneurship, that we're ensuring that we provide more child care slots for working families across the state, and address the child care deserts that we see, because we know that expanding child care is essential to Maryland's workforce participation and economic growth. Our members touch folks from cradle to career, from our child care providers to our K through 12 members to our folks in the community colleges and higher education working. And therefore, as a union, we ask and urge for a favorable report on this bill.
This panel. Thank you all very much. Ms. McCoy.
Hi. Yes, my name is Brielle McCoy, and I'm the proud owner and operator of Little Bees in Bloom Family Child Care in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm here today in strong support of continued and increased funding for GoFCC. GoFCC has been instrumental in my journey from having a vision to open a home daycare to become a fully licensed and successfully operating family child care business owner. The licensing process in Maryland can be complex and overwhelming, navigating regulations, inspections, required trainings, and business development steps. It's not something most individuals can accomplish alone. Without the guidance, technical assistance, mentorship, and consistent support from the Go FCC team, Little Bees in Bloom would not exist today. Go FCC did more than help me complete paperwork. They walked alongside me step by step, helping me understand compliance requirements, strengthen my business foundation, and build confidence as an entrepreneur. They provided the tools and encouragement that transformed my dream into a thriving program that now serves families in Baltimore City. There are many Marylanders who had the passion and potential to open family child care programs, but lack the resources and guidance to navigate licensing and startup process. Increased funding for Go FCC would allow more individuals, especially women and minority entrepreneurs, to receive the same opportunity I received. The chance to build a sustainable business, serve their community, and create generational stability. Investing in Go FCC is an investment in entrepreneurship, workforce development, and the future of Maryland's children. I respectfully urge you to support increased funding for Go FCC so that more Maryland residents can build businesses like Little Bees in Bloom and continue strengthening communities across our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for our virtual witness? All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Senator King, for being done.
Did you want to just vote on them all?
At some point. All right, Senator Reedy. This is your standard one, right?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Anything unusual?
Nothing unusual. Carroll County Public Fund
Thank you very much.
Facilities bond request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know I have personal and virtual. Do they need to make any comments?
No, she's just on to answer any questions.
That's what I figured.
She'll report back to the county commissioners that I persuaded you quickly to.
Yes, you did a very good job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Rosapap, you have a number of bills before us. Seems like everyone has a number of bills before us today. Still, there seems to be a number of people who've had a number of bills. Senator Rosapap, I like the number of witnesses on this one.
I do too. But I have to say, I do not meet the standard of Senator King in terms of the number of bills. I just want to say. Now, I'm beating her number of witnesses, but not in the number of bills.
Yeah.
So this bill we've seen before, and it's basically designed to clarify the law involving fantasy games in the gambling context. With that, I'll turn it over to my panel, who understands it much better than I do.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you, Senator, for introducing the bill. We had the bill last year. We're trying to work with the Lottery and Gaming Control Agency to reach an understanding. I apologize. My name is John Pica on behalf of Dabble and the. Thank you. Thank you. 34 states allow this type of game that this language would create. You can play daily fantasy sports right now in Maryland. This is just under a different model. It will bring 6 to 9 new companies here and likely about $10 million in additional revenue. So we've worked with the lottery agency, and we admit that there's a blur between fantasy competition and sports wagering. For every expert the Lottery and Gaming Control has to say it's sports wagering, we can find that many experts to say it's not. Federal law specifically exempts fantasy competition from sports wagering, and this issue, whether daily fantasy sports or whether fantasy sports is sports wagering has been decided by the highest courts in New York and Illinois, and both decided that fantasy competition is not sports wagering. So we're still trying to work with the lottery and come to an agreement on what we can agree is a good bill. So the lottery had two main objections last year: the fee, and that last year's bill would allow participants to play against the house. We fixed both of those. This is peer-to-peer, where I would have an entry fee that's not a wager, not a bet, and I would play against Senator and Youngblood Pika over here. So it's much different. So it's peer-to-peer with a fee of $50,000, which is half of what sports wagering licensees pay for a smitten of the revenue that's available to those licensees. I ask for a favorable report. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in front of you today. My name is Matthew Pika. I'm here in support of Senate Bill 456. Since sports wagering and fantasy competitions shared the gaming space in Maryland in 2022, the results have diverged sharply. In 2022, sports wagering revenue was $19 million, and fantasy competitions revenue was $17 million. By the end of 2025, sports wagering revenue had grown to $577 million, while fantasy competition revenue declined to $7 million. The General Assembly established a fantasy framework in Subtitle 1D, and these contests originally operated in Maryland in 2022. Subsequent regulatory interpretation excluded pick'em and over-under style formats, even if they're structured as peer-to-peer contests. This effectively prevented modern fantasy formats from operating in the state. This bill clarifies that these peer-to-peer contests are regulated under Subtitle 1D. Participants pay a fixed entry fee, assemble a roster, compete solely against other participants. Prizes are disclosed in advance. The operator does not accept wagers, set odds, or assume risk on outcomes. Participants are not wagering against a sporting event outcome. They are competing against other participants in a contest. Using comparable data from other states, we estimate this could bring an additional 6 to 9 operators in Maryland and generate 10 to 15 million in additional revenue. But it also could allow the revenue to start increasing year to year as opposed to decreasing as it has the past 3. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully request a favorable report.
Thank you. What has been the response from the lottery as it relates to the changes you've made this year?
So I'll take that, Matthew. We met with Jennifer Beskid about a week ago. And on behalf of the lottery, she said we can get behind this bill. We had a subsequent meeting with Mr. Butler and Michael Eaton and Jennifer Beskid, and we were moving in a good direction. But there's still a philosophical belief on the part of the Lottery and Gaming Control Agency that this is still sports wagering. We disagree, but there is a blur between the two types of contest games or wagers and bets that each side does. So we're continuing to talk. We're working with Delegate Ebersole in the House, and we're trying to come up with a reasonable compromise.
Good. Okay. Well, when you feel closer, let's bring them in with you, and we'll have a little group discussion.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like hearing that. Thank you.
Senator.
Thank you. I have a question for you regarding risk level. My understanding is there are 4 levels of risk in gambling: non-gambling, low risk, at risk, and disordered gambling. How would you characterize this particular fantasy competition?
I'm going to answer briefly and ask Matthew Pika to answer also. Much less riskier than betting. So when you bet on a sports wagering, a wager, the odds change up and down. When you enter a fantasy competition contest, the odds don't change. There are no odds. You enter a lineup, and whatever enter that lineup with those numbers, it stays the same. So it's not a wager. You're not betting against the house, and it's less riskier. But I think Matthew Pika is better equipped to answer that question.
I don't have an answer as to which category it would fall under, but I do know that the average entry fee, as opposed to what you would do if you were placing a wager with a sports book, is considerably lower. And the frequency of wagers versus entry fees is also considerably lower. I don't know exactly where it would fall into your categories. I can research that and get it back to you, but that's what I do know.
It's not as risky, Senator, as sports wagering. There's a more likelihood of engaging more often with that than there is.
Because there are a lot more
fantasy.
options.
Very good. Questions? Any other questions for this panel? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rosapapa, you have Senate Bill 457. Senator King and I have to step out for a minute. So Senator Zucker. Senator Edelman.
You're going to miss some great testimony, Mr. Chairman.
I apologize for that. I hope they'll be back quickly.
Well, thank you guys for joining me up here. So this bill, I actually know a lot more about. It's basically to allow counties to do what municipalities can do now, and to do classified valuation or classified tax rates on property taxes, separating land value from building value. And it's done around the world. It's done quite a bit in Pennsylvania, and it's done with municipalities in Maryland. One thing that I'll do that I've rarely heard in my time in the legislature is a sponsor praise a fiscal note. This fiscal note is really well done. And it's not because I like the answer. It's that it really in detail explains what land value taxation is, how it works, what the pluses and minuses are. And so if you want to learn more about this, I would read the fiscal note, and I congratulate the fiscal note writer. But that's the essence of it. And you'll hear from experts that I have on my panel and others who are testifying about what the value proposition is. From my point of view, simply it is that land and buildings are different things, and our current system lumps them together for historical reasons. And land value is much more related to location, much more affected by public investment and public infrastructure than the building. And so conceptually allowing counties, not requiring, allowing counties to separate land value and building value the way municipalities can in Maryland has always seemed to me like a good idea. With that, I would urge a favorable report. Who would like to go next?
Hi, my name is Rick Rybeck. I'm an attorney with a master's degree in real estate and urban development. I'm testifying in support of Bill 457, introduced by Senator Rosapap. The purpose of this legislation is to provide Maryland counties and Baltimore City with the same power to set property tax rates as is now provided to most municipalities. SB 457 allows counties and Baltimore to set different tax rates on privately created building values and publicly created land values. There is no reason to deny counties in Baltimore the same taxing powers already delegated to municipalities. If only for fairness and parity, Senate Bill 457 should be enacted into law. Unfortunately, the fiscal note accompanying this bill paints a false picture. First, the software change required to generate tax bills is a simple arithmetic equation. During this age of AI coding and cloud data storage, a $39 million cost estimate seems quite excessive. Second, SB 224, also before this committee, is very similar to Bill 457, and yet it has zero fiscal impact on the state according to its fiscal note. Third, even if SDAT requires money to spend on updating its software, this expenditure is already required by current law because, as stated, Maryland municipalities already have the right to tax land and buildings at separate rates. Therefore, SB 457 creates no new spending requirement. In Pennsylvania, about 20 communities are using the ability to shift property taxes off of building values and onto land values to promote job creation and affordable housing without new spending or loss of revenue. SB 457 does not mandate reform. It simply allows counties in Baltimore to have this opportunity. I urge your support. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Brian Wyville with Amalgamated Transit Union Local 689 and Local 1300. So first off, I would like to say, to anyone that sees a tax bill and immediately thinks new taxes, once again, this is enabling legislation that allows greater flexibility for counties and Baltimore City and Maryland. So this does not necessarily mean taxes would be increased because, in fact, there are already tax rate limits set in many of these places. This just allows the flexibility to potentially shift around where that taxation would be on by allowing for different rates of taxation on property and land. So with that being said, the question might be there of why is a transit union here supporting this? Transit unions across the country have been looking at split rate taxation, especially the opportunity to tax land at different rates than property, because we think it has a lot of downstream positive effects. Transit in general is typically public dollars invested into land, whether we want to view it that way, whether it's investing in a bus route, rail infrastructure, whether it's investing in the Purple Line or the future Red Line. This is money from the state's taxes that is investing into making land more valuable. So now using land value taxation, which would be enabled under this bill to set different rates for these things, the state can better recapture that value that it's invested in. So we are here in support of this bill, not only because of the flexibility that it gives to counties and the city of Baltimore, but because we believe this is the most just and equitable way to ensure that the state is getting the best recapture of its own investments into public infrastructure. And for that reason, we urge a favorable report on this bill.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is David Bjorndalen. I'm with Baltimore Thrive, a community group in the city of Baltimore. SB 457 is fundamentally a bill about parity and local authority. Municipalities in Maryland, including Rockville and Laurel, already possess the authority to establish separate rates for land and improvements. This bill simply extends that same authority to Baltimore City and Maryland counties, ensuring that all local governments have equal access to a proven fiscal tool. Granting this authority does not mandate a tax change, it merely empowers local jurisdictions to make decisions that best meet their economic and housing needs. This authority would allow cities and counties to reduce taxes on buildings and improvements while offsetting the revenue by modestly increasing the tax rate on land. By shifting the tax burden away from productive investment and onto underutilized land, local governments can encourage development, rehabilitation, and job creation without decreasing overall tax revenue. For Baltimore City in particular, this policy offers a direct way to address chronic challenges such as vacant lots, abandoned properties, and speculative landholding. Under the current system, owners who allow land to sit vacant often pay significantly less in taxes than homeowners and businesses who invest in maintaining and improving their properties. SB 457 would help correct this imbalance by incentivizing vacant landowners to either develop their property or put it back into productive use, because their taxes would increase. Development of these vacant lots reduces blight and strengthens neighborhoods. This approach is not theoretical. Cities in Pennsylvania, most notably Harrisburg, have successfully implemented a similar property tax policy. After adopting a lower rate on improvements and a higher rate on land, Harrisburg saw a significant reduction in its vacant housing stock, increased private investment, and revitalized previously distressed areas. These outcomes demonstrate that taxing improvements at a lower rate than land can promote development while stabilizing municipal finances. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hello, I'm speaking today in support of Senate Bill 457 on behalf of Baltimoreans for People-Oriented Places, BaltPop. We advocate for transportation and land use policies that support the development of prosperous places designed for people in Baltimore City and the surrounding counties. We want to give local communities the tools to design smart policy that encourage building places people want to be. One of the strongest tools in this toolbox is a land value tax. This bill, Senate Bill 457, is a crucial first piece in enabling Baltimore City and Maryland's counties to shift to a system that discourages land speculation and encourages more productive use of their land. Benefits of this change are overwhelmingly received by existing homeowners and business owners who are invested in the community and embedded in the community. Those who maintain homes and businesses generally win out, whereas land speculators and vacant property owners lose out. Places with efficient land use or with efficient use of land are also more economically prosperous and usually more pleasant to live and work in. I happen to live in Howard County, so I'll use a Howard County example. Old Ellicott City is a dense walkable area designed for people that makes good use of the available land. It happens to be constrained by geography rather than tax policy, but the effect is the same. Compare it to the neighboring US 40 commercial corridor. People come from all across the state just to walk around Old Ellicott City. Nobody comes to walk around US 40 for the ambiance. Our current property tax system encourages building more US 40s. A land value tax encourages building more Old Ellicott cities. We hope you issue a favorable report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Before we go to virtual, are there any questions? Actually, I have a question, a quick question. I was looking at the fiscal note because the sponsor so eloquently proclaimed its loveliness. And I see here that it says that there's an AG opinion that concluded that municipalities already have the power to implement land value taxation, but none have done so. Just anybody want to comment on that?
This is, did you want to?
No, please. No, please.
Rick Rybeck with Just Economics. This is an approach that a lot of people have never heard about before, and I don't think a lot of people know about it. We would like to change that, but I don't know that there's any place in Maryland where it's been considered and then declined. I think they've just failed to consider it, again, basically for lack of knowledge about it.
Okay. All right. I think we'll move to the virtual witnesses. Thank you.
I'm happy to jump in. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shayna Roth-Gormley. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm a staff attorney at Community Law Center. We're a legal services provider for nonprofit organizations and communities throughout Maryland. We work on issues impacting neighborhoods, including vacant properties and property abandonment. We support SB 457 to give county governments in Baltimore City the ability to set real property taxes based on separating out the assessments for land and improvements to land. We're looking at this especially from the potential impact on the significant numbers of vacant properties in Baltimore City and the opportunities that this can have to incentivize property owners to address blight and vacancy by rewarding the improvement of their properties rather than allowing them to sit vacant. Holding vacant property owners accountable by acknowledging the underlying market value of land that they hold will result in a fairer property tax system. And so we respectfully urge a favorable report. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilman Blanchard?
Thank you very much, Senator. I'm Zach Blanchard, councilman from downtown Baltimore, which would really benefit from this bill and the surrounding neighborhoods. This is an awesome opportunity to lower the tax burden on homeowners and productive businesses without having to cut services and incentivize investment in property that's underdeveloped. I want to say a big thanks to SDAT for their partnership. Their work in reassessing land, especially vacant land in Baltimore City that we've seen with Group 2, this is already starting to show very real benefits. And I know that there's plenty of details that still need to be ironed out, but there's things that can be done that don't need legislation, and they've been great partners in looking through this. So I want to give them a shout out. I just want to flag that I know there are folks who are, there's opposition to the bill, as well as just like general serious concern about the bill. And I've had some great conversations with the Maryland Building Industry Association, Baltimore Industrial Group, Baltimore Developers Work Group. And I think that none of the groups that I've spoken with have had any like opposition that couldn't be overcome by really like getting a fuller understanding of the impact here, or even bigger, just like, working together to accomplish both the goals of the supporters of the package, of the bill, without with avoiding some of the things that they're concerned with. So I don't think there's any of the opposition that I've seen is like inherently unavoidable. And so I think that's really important. And I know that I've seen on, at least on the House side, there's been some good conversations between the bill sponsor over there and some of those groups already. So I think there's a lot of goodness going on there. I will briefly say to the senator's question, fun fact, I think it was Hyattsville, Maryland is actually the first town in the world to implement a split value tax. And it was overturned by the Maryland Supreme Court in like 1891. And then in like 1914, the General Assembly changed the charter to allow it. And so, yeah, fun fact, we actually have had it in the past. And it is now allowed again per state constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan.
Hi, thank you, Senator, and thank you to everyone on the committee for taking time. I'm so sorry. That's my cat's tail. I'm just going to move him right here and just put him to the side. He's a big, passionate fan of land tax issues. Thank you. Sorry, let me get my composure again. My name is Dan Brennan. I'm a Baltimore City resident. I'm also a PhD historian. I work on legislative and political history. I look broadly speaking at how legislatures seek to achieve change and how their laws often have unintended consequences. That's actually why I'm here today. I'm here because I'm a Baltimore homeowner and property taxpayer. And 2 years ago, my wife and I got our first property tax bill. And even though we had a couple of advanced degrees between us, we couldn't really understand it. So that started me on what has now been a very long process of learning about property tax, the really perverse incentives our current system creates, and coming across the work of many of the people in the room in front of you, and joining them in this effort that I think is really important to give Baltimore City, as well as other Maryland counties, the power to simplify and make their tax codes reflective of the values that we actually all profess to have, but are not actually reflecting in tax legislation. As an academic who focuses on the unintended consequences of legislation, I want to use the remainder of my time to address two concerns that I would have if I were in your seats. The first one is, can this be implemented well? I think the applied history of land taxation in various U.S. and international jurisdictions shows that it can be done well. And as Mr. Rybeck noted, our ability to do this with better technology, GIS systems, it's only getting better, right? So the implementation challenges are real. We're working on them, but there's no reason to think we can't do it. And maybe most importantly, when we're talking about creating any new tax authorities, are we likely to create rent-seeking behavior that's going to create all kinds of perverse incentives in the economy, harm businesses? This was a concern raised on the House side by the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. I don't think so. And the real benefit that land tax has here is we're not distinguishing between uses of property or zoning. We're just distinguishing within property itself. And so we're actually only harming people who are not using property effectively and efficiently, and we're actually rewarding people who use it productively. So we're not creating unintended consequences that will create all kinds of weird, corrupt, or weird jiggery-pokery things.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, thank you very much. I think those are all the favorable witnesses. All right. Now we have unfavorable. I'd like to call up Hugo Cantu. Actually, anybody unfavorable, please come up. Is it a long list? Well, as many as can sit at the table. How about round one?
Microphone's in front of me, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
To start, Tom Ballantyne on behalf of NAIOP Maryland. We're a commercial real estate trade association here in opposition to Senate Bill 457. In 2024, you authorized higher local tax rates for vacant and blighted property based on the expectation that you heard from the proponents that it would spur growth and redevelopment. This bill would expand authorization for higher land value taxes to be applied to occupied and well-maintained properties that are deemed underutilized. The land value tax is based on a 19th century theory that real estate values come primarily from the land rather than the building structure or the activities that take place in the building. land values based on the assessor's estimate of the maximum development potential rather than relying on comparable sales, replacement costs, cash flow to establish the value as we do today. It's administratively complex, and the inability to accurately determine land values undermine the public trust and derailed Pittsburgh's land value tax after a public backlash resulted in more than 130,000 tax assessment appeals. The theory really misunderstands the factors that determine development feasibility. Simply taxing land more heavily won't overcome broader economic barriers like a weak market demand, high construction costs, zoning, and infrastructure limitations. The proponents of land value taxation recommend that land be taxed at 4 to 5 times the rate of improvements. If you applied these taxes to office buildings in high vacancy scenarios, it would really dramatically worsen the stress that they're feeling now. There are 20 submarkets in Maryland where chronic double-digit vacancy rates are choking off cash flow and dropping valuations. Connecticut, Virginia, Michigan, and Washington, D.C. have all recently considered land value taxation but have not adopted this approach, and we would recommend your unfavorable report on Senate Bill 457.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Chair. My name is Hugo Cantu, representing the Apartment and Office Building Association. We represent roughly 23 million square feet of commercial office space and about 167,000 apartment rental units between Montgomery and Prince George's County. While this bill establishes a split rate tax system, it's also morphing into a effectively property tax increase. And I know the proponents are saying, well, this is an authorizing bill. It doesn't do anything right now. But in this economy, to my members, that might as well just be a surefire tax increase. And on the multifamily side, I think it's important to remember that the cost of a project, a multifamily project, 40% of it's caught up in government regulation. So while the argument is vacant land is there because people don't want to do anything, we also have to consider that it's vacant maybe because people can't do anything. And then on the commercial side, even one of the studies that was mentioned in the House, I think it was Oates and Schwab, reference, and I think that was referencing, hey, land value tax is good, but really the primary factor, the driving factor, which was mentioned in the study itself, was actually commercial shortage space, or shortage of commercial space. And in Montgomery County, we're almost 20% commercial vacancy, office vacancy. Prince George's County is also double digits. So that's not, land value tax here is not going to solve the problem that we have right now. It's in fact, in our written testimony, you'll see the difference between Maryland and Virginia taxes. You'll see the commercial office vacancy of multiple jurisdictions. We're asking for an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 457. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, chairs, everybody in the room. Kelly Schultz, CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. And for the record, the Maryland Tech Council does represent a lot of industry sectors, to include biopharma manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, technology, and yeah, of course, data centers. And so as this bill does not relate to the last bill that I testified on earlier today, I will say that there's the risk of it all getting tied in together. And the uncertainty that is promoted by an uncertain taxation system really does sit unwell with those site selectors that are out there looking to choose different varying places in order to be able to locate some of their big projects. And we all know that the unpredictability of the tax burden moving forward is one of those negative effects when it comes to those that are looking for large projects. I do believe that when, we have big announcements that have come out of the Department of Commerce this year, last year, and previous years, and hopefully into the future, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and to be able to understand the predictability and or the uncertainty in very specific areas decreases the possibility of overall economic development, generation of revenue altogether for the state. And if we're looking at increasing economic development for the mere purpose of creating additional revenue as it comes to commercial projects, especially large commercial projects, I would highly recommend an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 457. Thank you very much.
Hi, members of the committee. My name is Alex Bushell. I'm an attorney from Baltimore, and my practice is focused on state and local taxation, and I'm just here on my personal behalf. I'm opposed to this for a few reasons. First, the theoretical appeal is going to run up against the practical reality of implementation. Accurate values or assessments of separate land and improvement interests are incredibly difficult to come up with. You all may have an idea what your homes are worth, for instance, but I doubt as many of you would be as confident breaking that out between what the underlying land and what the improvements are worth. And now, because this would be switching to coming up with two values, you're basically doubling the workload for SDAT. Now, you may see on your assessment notice a breakout, but they don't put any time into that because all that matters under Maryland law is the total value. And so most of that's worked backwards to come up with. Next, the budget note. I would take it pretty seriously in terms of the expense because unique to our state, we have a statewide assessment system. We're the only ones, I think, left who have it. And it's worked very well for us since 1973. And the problem is all these systems have to be changed on a strict state level, whether any jurisdiction takes you up on this or not. And the reason, and I won't get into it, but the fact that municipalities can do this is really a holdover from a statute 120 years ago. The statute, if you read it today, you wouldn't even pick up on this. I'd recommend reading that opinion you were referencing to see how they came up with it. And that lawyer is a very good lawyer who wrote that opinion. First of all, it will also throw our whole system into chaos. These credits you were talking about, the enterprise zone, the RISE credit, it'll make them significantly less valuable. So all these things you've planned on over the years are going to be basically thrown out the window because they just won't generate much value. Also, we have a state tax, property tax, and that's going to throw the calculations of the taxable assessments through phase-ins up in the air for statewide issues. And we have, a uniformity requirement in our Constitution. So with that, I'm done.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Grayson Wiggins here on behalf of the Maryland Chamber of Commerce. Most of my talking points have been covered. I would just note that, I think then this was addressed by the proponents. I think we agree with the need for economic development in the state, 100%. We don't think this is the vehicle that gets us there. I think there's a presumption on some of the proponents' part that counties will lower tax rates. In my experience, I have not seen counties do that. I have not seen a desire to do that at the county level. And so our concern is that this will just be a separate class of property tax that levies additional taxes against businesses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Are there any other opponents to this bill? All right, that concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 457.
Did my panel come up and join me?
Okay, Senator.
This is the last one I got.
Love it.
And it's a good one. Okay. Not that the other two were not good, too. So what's the problem? The problem is something we all know, is the technological changes that have undermined local journalism. It's a big deal. And people have been working in a lot of different ways to try to protect and resuscitate local journalism, which is so important to the effective functioning of democracy and to our communities. And this bill takes one approach to doing it. And it's not identical to, but I want to give this example because I've noticed it in my community where I live in College Park and in my district, and in Beltsville. Beltsville has had a monthly community nonprofit newspaper for as long as I've lived in College Park, and as long as I've been in the General Assembly. It's mailed once a month to every local household. And it covers the real deal. What the Cub Scouts are doing, what the Senior Citizen Club is doing, why that intersection is so screwed up. And people in Beltsville read it every single month. And now, of course, it's online as well as being mailed. Within the past couple of years, another nonprofit starting in Hyattsville called Streetcar Suburbs Publishing have created similar publications. And in those situations, and now there's one in College Park called the College Park Here and Now, and one in Laurel called the Laurel Independent, which are also online but also mailed to every household, College Park in its case, Laurel in its case. The economics of it, to get them off the ground, what the municipality of College Park and the municipality of Laurel did is they decided to put the information that they wanted to get out to their citizens in the newspaper instead of doing their own mailings and doing their own communication. They were going to spend the money anyway. They said, well, let's spend it on a nonprofit monthly newspaper that will cover what's going on in Laurel, what's going on in College Park. And once again, my experience is people read those things very carefully, learn lots of things that you'd never know living in the community if you didn't have a local newspaper. So what this bill does is different from that. But essentially what it says is that half of the procurement of advertising by state agencies, either on paper or digitally, needs to be spent with local journalistic organizations. And it defines in the bill what that would be, and some of the witnesses can get into those definitions. But it's the same concept of basically taking money that will be spent anyway by the government to inform people and using as a vehicle to try to promote, encourage, and expand local journalism. With that, I'd urge a favorable report.
Thank you.
That's interesting. Yeah. No, it's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe you can answer this as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
And Senator, you don't have, let's see where we get with it, but I'm just really curious, thinking of all the things that the state may do, how you parse it out to all the appropriate places.
Mm-hmm.
I think to me would be a significant challenge. But as much as I like the concept, but how do you parse it out?
Well, I can start there. For the record, I'm Rebecca Snyder. I'm the executive director of the Maryland, Delaware, D.C. Press Association, and we do support this bill wholeheartedly, and thanks to Senator Rosa Pepp for bringing it. This actually has been is a model that is taken from New York City. It's also in San Francisco, and it basically keeps in Maryland. It would keep Maryland dollars in Maryland. So we're very fortunate to have publications like Streetcar Suburbs, which is a member of MDDC, as well as many others and other local news organizations that can help Maryland achieve its advertising goals. So when you ask about how that mechanically happens, there is an element of competitive advantage. So right now, all state agencies go through, for the most part, a competitive bid process. Sometimes the Maryland State Ad Agency helps along, and we would imagine that there will be a list maintained of appropriate news organizations, so those that satisfy the objective criteria set forth in statute in the bill. I do want to take a small little detour to remind us all that I think the amendments are out that bring in.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they bring in Maryland Public Television and Public Radio. That was an oversight in the initial bill drafting. We do want to make sure that we're supporting all of those types of organizations. So in terms of how it parses out, it's not that, it would go specifically to every single news organization, because the state needs to have value for their dollar. And they need to make sure that they're cheap, just like any client, they need to make sure that they are effectively reaching the audiences that they need. So there's no master plan on like X amount goes to specific publications. I recognize I have 6 seconds left, and I would just like to share, that most of the things that most of the times I come before the legislature, I'm talking about public notice, which are statutorily required notices that need to run in the newspaper. This is not that. This is PSAs, this is, campaigns for the lottery or whatever the case may be. It is not tourism, nor is it recruitment, because oftentimes those advertising dollars go beyond our borders for very specific reasons. In the panel, we have a local publisher that'll talk about the full breadth of services that your local news providers have in terms of advertising. You'll also hear virtually from Rebuild Local News, who is a national organization that can share a little bit more about how this is working in other states. We feel like this is an important way to support local media and benefit the state by prioritizing Maryland businesses with Maryland dollars. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Have you had any, from the experience out there in the world, when people would do this, has there been any, questionable news outlets that you've run into that wanted to participate in these kinds of things, and then you sort of said, and how do you make a judgment on that, if that's the case, if there have been those kinds that wanted to participate?
Well, and it's always uncomfortable. I never like to be the decider. So what we tend to do is look at acts of journalism instead of like who is a journalist per se. But this legislation has some really specific criteria that says this is what counts as a local news organization. So like, for instance, for public radio or for MPT, they have to have been able to secure a CPC grant prior to 2026. For news media organizations, there's a little laundry list of requirements that are pretty objective. So what we don't want to do is get into a situation of picking winners and losers. Like, oh, you don't ever want to get into a situation where you don't like the coverage, so you can say you're not a real journalist.
Right.
But we want to make sure that those local news organizations really are legitimately serving their communities and using journalistic standards. Although it's not written into the bill, one of the amendments says that the state can use a third-party organization to maintain that list. The MDDC Press Foundation, which is a 501c3, is open to maintaining that list, and we recognize that, although most of your news outlets in Maryland are members, I wouldn't presume to say that's totally exhaustive, and it would be a global list, not just our members.
Thank you.
Moving on.
My name is David Ballou. I'm here representing Baltimore Public Media. We're the proud producer of WIPR, Maryland's largest member NPR station, and we're strongly in support of Senate Bill 459. Especially in this day and age when Corporation for Public Broadcasting has been defunded by the federal government. This bill that would encourage state agencies to invest locally in local journalism could have a huge impact on our work. And with that, I'll spare everyone's time, and I'll say that we're very grateful for the provisions that are being offered in the bill to explicitly include public media, and we're grateful and supportive.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I am Jordy Wilson. I'm the publisher of the Frederick News Post in Frederick, and I too am here to urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 459. As the senator mentioned in his introduction, local news is a public good, one that makes democracy, or at least helps to make democracy itself possible, and yet it has its foundations have, I think the word you used was shifted, which I think is a kind word. I could spend all of my 2 minutes talking about the struggles of publishing community newspapers, but what I would like to focus on is this common sense, simple strategy, revenue neutral policy to direct 50% of state agency advertising to keep it right here in Maryland. It's not a handout, not a subsidy. It's just a practical way to achieve two important purposes: effective campaigns on behalf of state agencies, while also supporting the media ecosystem that Maryland residents and our local democracy depend upon. These are challenging times for local media, but out of these challenging times has come a tremendous amount of innovation. And many of us across the state are building sophisticated, modern media companies that offer a full suite of services, our traditional print or broadcast activities, as well as sophisticated digital campaigns and even cutting-edge services. We're actually in the middle of doing a major push even today, offering things like generative engine optimization, which helps local businesses in Maryland adapt to AI technology and AI searches. Right here in Maryland, we offer the same capabilities as out-of-state firms, but we offer the added benefit of local knowledge and local audience trust. We and other local media outlets are ready to compete and ensure that public money supports Maryland jobs and Maryland communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions for this panel? Looks like a couple more people maybe who are in person. Are they, anyone else here for that?
No.
Okay. Then I have Lori Henson online.
Yes, thank you so much. I want to thank Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the committee. My name is Lori Henson. I'm a policy manager with Rebuild Local News. We are the leading nonpartisan nonprofit coalition representing 3,000 newsrooms and 15,000 journalists. We develop and advocate for policies designed to strengthen community news. In that role, I'm asking you to advance SB 459, which requires Maryland, as you heard, to set aside half their discretionary advertising spend for local news outlets. This budget-neutral, buy local bill reinvests government advertising dollars into Maryland newsrooms, helping local news outlets expand coverage across Maryland communities. This approach works. As you heard, New York City has a set aside. It has directed over $72 million to community and ethnic news outlets over the past 5 years, allowing newsrooms to add staff and to expand neighborhood news coverage. The bill also is effective for what it does not do. It does not add a dime to the state's budget. It doesn't prevent agency staff from using a full range of media tools to promote programs and services. And among local news outlets, agencies will still choose the media that best connect them with the audiences they want to reach. The bill is not an entitlement. Local news will still compete for advertising dollars, providing audience metrics so marketing professionals can make informed strategic decisions. This bill is an innovative response to a crisis. Last year, our research found that in Maryland, it ranked 47th out of 50 states in the number of local journalists per capita. Another study found that since 2013, Maryland has lost more than 2/3 of its journalists, over 2,000 jobs. Research shows when communities lose a local news source, they face higher borrowing costs, lower voter turnout, more political polarization, government corruption, corporate crime. Local news benefits Maryland in countless ways, so we encourage a favorable report from the committee and happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions from Ms. Henson? Okay, we're going to move on to Timothy Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tim Nelson. I'm counsel to the Maryland, D.C. Delaware Broadcasters Association. On behalf of the association's 20 or so TV stations and more than 100 radio stations, I wish to convey our support as well for Senate Bill 459. Producing high-quality local broadcast news is the calling card for Maryland's local TV and radio stations and our digital properties. It's what we do. It's one of the many ways we serve our local communities. But as you've heard today, on the print side and the digital side, and it carries over to the on-air side, producing news, serving the public interest is an exceedingly costly endeavor. Broadcasters fund their on-air and digital operations through advertising dollars. Advertising accounts for just about all the revenue for Maryland's radio stations, more than half the revenues for the TV stations, and those revenues are increasingly challenged. In today's fragmented media ecosystem, we all know it's dominated by the huge big tech behemoths who've captured billions of advertising dollars that used to fund local journalism. Senate Bill 459 would ensure that certain state ad dollars will be spent here at home where it matters with local news entities. Those dollars in turn will aid local journalism across Maryland to the benefit of the state's citizens. No, Senate Bill 459 will not save local journalism, but we are at a point, as you've heard today, where every dollar matters. Senate Bill 459 is a common sense use of state resources to support local news and local communities across Maryland. I will say, to the extent the bill is in fact amended to include my colleagues at Maryland Public Television and Maryland Public Radio's over-the-air ad inventory, in addition to digital platforms, we would ask that local TV and radio stations on the commercial side, our members, are also included in the legislation, as we are also providing critical local journalism, just like our print and digital counterparts. We thank Senator Rosapep for sponsoring the bill and urge the committee to report it favorably. Thank you.
Great. Questions for Mr. Nelson? Or anybody here? All right, thank you very much. Very intriguing bill.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Good work.
I'm here to ask for more pins. Oh, no, wrong hearing. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I'm here to ask for more pins, Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry, wrong hearing.
Well, how about whether or not you're going to be willing to do some of your ads on local papers?
Yes, we would. Yes,
Yeah,
I love
think
local papers.
I
Yes.
actually like this.
Yeah, it's a cool bill.
Yeah, it's a cool bill. We are running.
I actually liked one of your bills.
We have been working with a bunch of local papers on our Earned It campaign to advertise the Earned Income Tax Credit this cycle. So
I love that. I love that. I love that. All right, Senator.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of Budget and Tax, I'm Shelley Heddleman, Senator from District 11, and I'm here to present Senate Bill 116, which it has to do with how what we spend comports with our ambitious climate goals. We have adopted over the past many years ambitious goals with regard to reduction of greenhouse gases, net zero carbon targets, et cetera. And without a systemic assessment of how we align with these goals, we risk making procurement decisions that inadvertently undermine our environmental commitments. As you know, the Board of Public Works, which the comptroller sits on, approves billions of dollars in contracts and agreements annually across construction, leasing, architectural services, and other categories. And these decisions have significant long-term implications for our state's carbon footprint, the climate resilience of our state infrastructure, and leadership in sustainable procurement and stewardship of taxpayer resources. I'm not going to go into the details of this bill, but environmental information should be a part of good project planning, and agencies developing contracts should understand the ecological and environmental implications as part of responsible stewardship. This bill makes information transparent to decision makers and the public. And the transparency helps identify projects that save taxpayer money while protecting the environment. This bill represents common sense governance. It ensures that when Maryland spends public money on contracts worth millions or billions of dollars, we do so with full awareness of the environmental implications. As Maryland faces increasing climate challenges from sea level rise to extreme heat and flooding, every state decision matters, and this bill helps ensure our procurement decisions are part of the solution and not part of the problem. So now what I'm going to tell you is we may not need to pass this bill. And I think we are going to declare victory with your blessing, because the Board of Public Works issued an advisory this morning that basically takes what is in this bill and adopts it voluntarily.
Yay.
So sometimes...
Are you trying to say that the legislature is not necessary?
Not at all, because I think perhaps without this bill, we may not have gotten quite this action.
I see. Well,
so
congratulations, Senator.
With that, I will turn it over to my friend, the comptroller, and ask her to shed a little more light on what they did this morning.
Sure. Thank you so much, Senator Heddleman, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Brooke Learman, the Comptroller of Maryland, here on behalf of in support of SB 116. And I do want to say before I get to what we did today that I do view this entire effort as a transparency measure. This bill and what was adopted today at the Board of Public Works does not impose any additional requirements on our agencies in terms of procurement. Instead, what it does is it says, let's make public the work that you are doing in the climate resiliency space. Let's make publicly available information that has to do with procurement regarding these areas, architects, engineering, construction, to ensure that the laws that this General Assembly has previously passed, that we're shedding light on how those laws are actually being implemented in the procurement process. My job is a lot about how the rubber meets the road, and procurement is a lot of how the rubber meets the road. And so this bill and what we did today is really about shedding light on creating more transparency in government to ensure that the goals that have been set are able to be reached and the statutes that have been passed are actually being implemented. And this was actually not my idea. This was an idea that first was surfaced by former Treasurer Nancy Kopp. She championed this idea of adopting verbiage on the BPW agenda items so that people would understand, so that the BPW members would know, so that the legislature would know, so that members of the public would know how these statutes are being enacted in our procurement process. And as Senator Heddleman said, earlier today, the Board of Public Works announced a new advisory that meets many of the requirements laid out in this bill. The agreement commits the Board of Public Works to ensure that contracts and leases before the board speak directly to our most critical climate priorities, and requires that all agencies, when they are submitting contracts on architecture, engineering services, construction, energy performance, landlord and tenant leases, et cetera, that all of those that the agencies actually share information about how those leases meet our state's climate goals and follow state statute. So, you know, my office is fully prepared to fulfill our compliance role under this bill, both as an agency leader and as a member of the Board of Public Works. I appreciate Senator Heddleman bringing this legislation, and I look forward to continuing to work with our partners across state government to make sure we get this right. Thank you, and urge a favorable report if it goes forward.
Well, you've convinced me. Move unfavorable. Questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Why aren't you leaping out of your seat, Senator? You're it, man.
You're the only thing to us.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. What, another year without a stadium bill, right?
You want to do a stadium bill?
It's another stadium bill, right?
Oh, it is. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
It's the gift that keeps on giving every year.
You've got some nerve, man.
This is just a minor change or correction from last year's version. Quickly, Senator Paul Quarterman, representing District 2, Washington, Frederick Counties, presenting Senate Bill 497. Property tax exemption for the city of Hagerstown, the Hagerstown Multi-Use and Event Center. Last year, we passed a version of this bill for the event center, which is also known as our stadium. However, it was not retroactive, and so SDAT is coming back and saying that they owe taxes from year one, and so that cleans that up. The city of Hagerstown portion is the city also built what's called a field house, which is an indoor turf facility that they own. It's operated by somebody else. SDAT's giving them problems also. So long story short, we're just combining the efforts here, trying to get this all knocked out at once. We have a letter of support from the city, letter of support from the delegation, all unanimous. A lot of support from the community coalition.
Any questions for the senator?
Thank you.
Okay. Next.
All right, next.
501.
Senate Bill 501, the local bill with regards to a property tax exemption for a group called Platoon 22, which is veteran housing. It is supported by the delegation unanimously, our Board of County Commissioners unanimously. We would move for a favorable report.
Any questions? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
We are out.